Today, we are so thinking about all things Pokemon because it's Pokemon Week. So we thought we'd tell the story of the very first Pokemon Day ever. Now that Pokemon Day has become such like a staple, it's kind of fun to go back and think about where it all started.
Yeah, we were around and we were on the scene at the first Pokemon Day celebrations.
Yeah.
So we're gonna look back at that. Look at us, we're surrounded by all of our great Pokemon friends today. There's so many things happening in the world of Pokemon
There's a lot of things happening
this week, and it's all happening right here on this channel.
Yes, we have a lot of other Pokemon things going on too.
We have predictions for Pokemon Day and also our reactions for Pokemon Day happening in separate videos.
Yes.
Because there's so much happening that we can't just put it all in one place. So check those out if you're interested in the before or after. The aftermath.
The before and after.
Of Pokemon Day. Hopefully we get to see the hot COO one more time. That's, I think, what most of us are
I'm already
looking forward to
that. Yeah.
Right?
I look forward to that every year.
Yes.
You see him once a year and he's still hot.
Still looks good.
He gets hotter every year.
And then it's out now, finally, the long-awaited Super Kit and Krysta 64 vlog of us camping out for Pokemon cards.
Rare Pokemon cards.
Do we get him? Do we not?
Do we get into a fight? Do we not?
I don't know.
Do you punch out somebody? Do you not?
There were altercations
Drama.
with security guards. On-site tensions were high.
The line was
But you'll just have to watch it for
insane.
yourself to see the outcome, because we can't make up what happened along the way with
You really
this.
couldn't have called it.
No.
I definitely had some thoughts of how it would play out when we were like going through.
You did? You seem to have not a thought in your mind when we were out there doing it.
What?
Please refer to the leaked text thread that is in this video, which is very one-sided.
Well, it's called Some People Were Driving and Some People Weren't.
And then I asked you, like, well, what should we do? And you're like, I don't know. We got to think on our feet here. We got to make a decision. You have your head on a swivel.
You seem to have made this decision for both of us.
Well,
some of those decisions were really questionable.
Somebody's got to take control, take charge here.
Some of them were highly questionable decisions.
Whatever.
Anyways, it's out. Go watch it,
It's out,
please.
yes.
It's amazing.
Beyond the world of Pokemon, we're also living in the world of Metroid. Our spoiler cast for Super Metroid is going to be out around the end of the week.
Yes.
And if you want to get in the mood, we do have that gameplay video for Super Metroid that's already out of us playing about the first hour or so of the game. And we're finally going to be able to answer the question from our Metroid Prime spoiler cast, which set us down this path in the first place of which of these two great games do we prefer. So as we've been working on this, I've been trying to come towards a definitive answer, but it's not
into the mindset.
It's not easy, though.
It's not easy, and it's so fun to play Metroid Prime and Super Metroid back to back, because I've never done that before, and it really does open your eyes to a lot of similarities, a lot of differences, a lot of inspirations.
Yes.
If you missed our Metroid Prime spoiler cast, which was last month's spoiler cast, that's available in the shop, and for anyone that is in our Patreon community of the Notification Squad and up. So you can just, like, if you need to catch up on all the Metroid, there's a lot of Metroid on the channel right now, which is kind of cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
We also started on something that this could take a long time. I don't know. So we've been
a multi-parter.
So in Elden Ring, and I guess we're going to talk more about Elden Ring later, in the DLC, you have reached the final boss.
I have.
And we decided that we are going to record your gameplay of encountering the final boss, hopefully defeating the final boss.
Hopefully.
We spent a good chunk of last Friday recording your gameplay, and it didn't happen.
I did not beat the boss in the first playthrough, no.
We're going to do this in chunks. We're going to keep checking in.
Yes.
And, I mean, eventually
I'll beat this boss.
Eventually, maybe it'll happen. I don't know.
Eventually, I'm going to beat this boss. Don't worry.
Do you feel bad in these games where it's like when you finally do it, obviously you have a great sense of accomplishment, but it's like the all-time record is like final boss 100 victories versus your one victory?
I don't care.
You don't care.
This is what I love about this game.
It's the one victory that matters.
It's the one, and I'm honestly like a little bit sad. Like I'm the kind of player, like when we played Zelda, for example, like Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild, I never finished the last bit of the main quest until I've feel like I've spent every second that I want to in that world.
There's a lot of content in Elden Ring if you want to.
That's what I'm saying.
100% Elden Ring.
I'm not 100%ing Elden Ring because I don't think I can.
You can do a new build.
Do that.
You can do.
Oh man, I love her though. My build is great.
Naked, no armor. You can do that.
Yeah. You can do all sorts of combinations. All sorts of
yes.
combinations. But I do like. I don't think I expected to beat the final boss on the first playthrough.
Well,
we played for like an hour.
Did you?
But
part of you was a little cocky, though, right?
Part of me was like, how hard can it be? Obviously, but the other part was like, after hearing everyone talking about it, it's like obviously it's gonna be hard, you know?
Yes, I did my best to be unobtrusive, but also give you some coaching, maybe some unbiased observations as I just watched the gameplay in between rounds.
Yeah, and we play such different characters in video games like this. That it's probably interesting because when I watch you play, for example, when we played Elden Ring, the main game, at the same time, your character specs were like so different than mine. You had a huge sword and you were just whacking away at it, and I'm like,
I'm just fascinated to watch you play this game in general because other times we'll sit down and we'll play a game like Princess Peach Showtime. And you seem to be struggling to get through that game, but you're powering through Elden Ring. And it's like, what is happening in your mind that is making one happen but making one not? It's kind of like, whoa, the roles are swapped or something.
Yeah, it's weird. There are some games that
I'm fascinated by that.
Are made for like more inexperienced players, like a Princess Peach Showtime or like a Kirby game. Sometimes I'm like struggling through like like an easy platformer.
Oh boy.
But somehow I can play these other games. I can like sort of be stubborn and just kind of bullhead my way through it. Anyhow, but that video, we're going to do it in
So we don't know when that video will be out. It could take
Eventually
it could take you days, weeks, months. I don't know. We're just going to keep chipping away. This could end up being like a 50-hour video, depending on how many sessions it takes you.
Maybe we can fast forward through some of it if it becomes like attempt.
No. I think we have to release it uncut.
Oh man!
People want the experience.
Okay,
they want to go through it.
Go through it with me.
Like what's your absolute like bottoming out point of like I'm not going to do this. This can't happen.
Y'all can make a game out of it. Yeah, make a game out of it. Take bets on which attempt.
Yeah. How many attempts?
Succeed.
That'd be fun.
Over under on these.
It's like
attempts.
guessing how many jelly beans are in the jar.
Exactly.
How many attempts will
it take? Yeah.
We kind of lost track of. We were not keeping super.
Well, I mean, the video is recorded.
In the video,
you can count it in the video. I'll count it in the
video. That's your torture of yourself, is having to edit yourself do this.
Well, if it's uncut, then I don't have to do any
dozens
edit.
and dozens and dozens.
If we're doing it uncut,
you have to count
literally,
it.
it
You
will
have to
be
count the
no
try.
edit. I just put the video together.
Oh my gosh. All right, back to Pokemon. Let's get into our story of the very first Pokemon Day from 2016.
Yeah, a long time ago.
But first, we have our great sponsor to shout out. Factor. We love Factor. They are the sponsor of this episode. So I want to ask you a question. Are you ready to optimize your nutrition this year? Because Factor has chef-made gourmet meals that make eating well easy. They're dietitian approved, ready to heat and eat in 2 minutes, so you can fuel right and feel great no matter what life throws at you.
I have looked very closely at the nutrition information
on
the meals.
And
it is so like precise the way that they have measured out everything. So if you are on a, some sort of restriction, like if you're keto, or if you
protein, heavy up on the protein,
or if you're doing vegan, calorie smart, whatever, like it is very clearly listed out, very carefully like measured to the gram kind of situation because it is dietitian made. I don't care too much about that, honestly, because I just need, for me, it's more the convenience factor.
Yes.
I just want something that I know is going to be, healthy, that I can eat quickly, which is what I love about these, because this is, my perfect go-to lunch. When we're busy during the week, I think we've both been eating these for lunch. It's just, so convenient. And you're not eating, junk, which is really nice.
I mean, don't underrate also that it just tastes good.
That's the thing.
There is some stuff really where it's I'm gonna eat it, but there's a trade-off. I'm not really gonna enjoy it, but I'm just gonna kind of choke it down. With this, it's this actually legit tastes good. It's like something you would get out of a restaurant, but it's so easy and fast to have it ready, which is great. And yes, you're saying over 40 options with 8 dietary preferences. The new stuff is out every week.
Yep.
And yeah, you can pick your category, protein, keto, whatever you are into. Factor's got all those options down, which is great. And then you can get some add-ons with breakfast, smoothies. I really like in their fresh juices lately.
The juice is really
Those are tasty.
good.
Yes.
And they they really do a good job of masking the yucky veggies. Like I'm not
Some
really,
people like vegetables.
I like vegetables,
I don't know
but
about
like I'm not like really into kale, for example. They one of the juices has kale and like green apples in it, but I can only taste the apples.
Okay.
And it tastes good. I'm like,
Interesting.
I can drink this. This is okay.
all right.
You know?
So eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/factorpodcast and use code factorpodcast to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code factorpodcast at factormeals.com/factorpodcast to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box.
And we'll put the link right over here with the QR code and also in the description below.
Nice. All right. Let's take y'all back to Pokemon Day, the very first in 2016.
So it's almost the 10-year anniversary of
Yeah,
this.
next year will be the 10th.
We'll have to celebrate
They'll have to make it even bigger.
It has to be some sort of bigger celebration. But
True Megaton announcements coming then.
I hope so.
But let's go back to 2016. Maybe just to start, like, what do we remember was going on in 2016? And we should say, we got a good memory boost on this because we did make a Nintendo Minute video.
Yeah.
That has unfortunately vanished like all of the others, but guess what? We still got it. We can refer to
have
that.
it,
Be like, oh yeah, that was happening, or oh, I remember that little detail. That was cool. That was fun. But in terms of like Pokemon overall in 2016, what do you remember of that?
Well, Pokemon Go was like the biggest thing ever in
But that happened after this.
2016. That's true. It happened
Yes,
after
that happened
this.
in the summertime.
Right. This was in the spring, obviously, like around the same time.
Late
of year.
February.
Late February.
Always the same time, yes.
I do remember that it was a sort of down-ish time for Nintendo and Pokemon. Like we worked very closely with the Pokemon company when we were at Nintendo, and we did a lot of like countless, launches and launch events, and they're a really interesting partner to work with. They're sort of, you're a partner and you have to work together.
Frenemies?
Yeah, a little frenemy energy. Like they also had a very sort of independent mindset, and also like we are the final say, we are in charge of this kind of vibe that you were kind of dancing around a little bit. It's a little walking on eggshells sometimes. And I do remember around this time, they, were getting to be more independent and like thinking more about like, we want to do stuff that doesn't really involve you, Nintendo. Like we're our own brand, we are our own company, we have our own ideas, we have things other than video games that we want to talk to our fans about, so we're going to start doing that, and you can't be involved, is sort of the vibe of 2016 Pokemon.
Yeah, it was, so late February 2016 would have been about almost exactly a year before the Switch came out.
Right.
So at that point, like, we, boots on the ground people, like, we knew the next system was coming, but we didn't know a ton about it.
Right.
So we were still very much in the Wii U malaise of like, oh gosh, are we going to make it? Are we going to be okay? What's going on? But it seems like Pokemon really kind of seized on that opportunity, like you said, to become more independent, to really push their own agenda more. And yeah, I think we all noticed kind of a shift where previously it was us kind of driving things and them giving us feedback. Versus at some point they just said like, yeah, we're going to do all this stuff on our own, and there's still stuff that as Nintendo we expect you to do that we will still maintain this relationship with. But yeah, they really took the reins, and this is around the time where they started having this mobile game initiative.
Yeah.
And I think part of that was like balancing out the risk of like, hey, if Nintendo really goes belly up, like
we have another option.
We need to have an option that's viable, that we have some experience in. That's not like the full treachery of going on a PlayStation, but like we need to be prepared for any sort of scenario. And yeah, they were starting to take these steps into like the bigger world of entertainment.
Yeah.
Which has been a great path for them to be on and has been super successful. So yeah, I think in that kind of Wii U 3DS era, like Pokemon Company really took the opportunity to strengthen itself and say, yeah, we're still involved with Nintendo, we're still inexorably linked with Nintendo in all these ways.
Whether we like it or not.
But there's a lot of things we can do without Nintendo too.
Yeah. And this is where I think they started to be more brand focused as well. Like less about like, here are the individual things that we make as the Pokemon company. Like, we make video games, and we have the anime, and we make cards. It was less about, like, the individual things that have a picture of Pikachu on it, but more so about, like, the brand of Pokemon overall, which was really interesting for us to look at because Nintendo is not that type of company. Like, Nintendo is not really a brand-based company, and, like, even from...
It's a products-based company.
It's a products-based company, exactly. It's all about, like, which game is coming next, and that's the thing that we're going to be talking about. And I remember even when we were around this 2016 sort of era, like, in the malaise of the Wii U days, even in that sort of weakened state, when we would suggest, like, hey, you know, look at what Pokemon's doing. They're doing these great sort of brand initiatives that help people understand, like, the broader world and universe of Pokemon, and maybe this is something that we can replicate at Nintendo. We were, like, completely shot down by this. So honestly, when the Pokemon company started doing more of this kind of stuff, I was a little jealous. Like, I was looking at them, and we were working on some of that stuff too, but I was honestly a little bit jealous, like, wow, you know, I wish Nintendo would do something like this, because there are going to be times where you might not have the hottest hot product, and you're going to need somebody to, or you're going to need your people that love you to, like, really stay with you because they love your brand overall because you did a good job marketing it, but Nintendo doesn't really do that. So, yeah, I remember thinking, like, this is such a cool thing the Pokemon company is doing, and two, I'm a little jealous. I would love to work on, like, a big brand marketing initiative like this, like, from inside Pokemon.
Yeah, and really, obviously this whole initiative that they had, this whole new change in mindset was totally accelerated by Pokemon Go, which came out that summer. We should probably do an episode on Pokemon Go.
We should.
Later on.
That was something.
I remember, we were hearing kind of early rumblings of, like, oh, they're working with this company, Niantic, who was not super, you know, well known by everybody back then, and it's like, oh, it's based on your location. It's like, all right, that sounds interesting. I mean, it could completely suck too, but it was hard to tell
who knew
what it would become. And I remember that. Quick thing on Pokemon Go. I remember in the summer I went to Japan to do kind of a kickoff for Breath of the Wild. And it was like within those first couple of weeks that Pokemon Go had come out, and it was not yet out in Japan.
You were so
jealous. It was in the U.S., and we were like, oh, we're jonesing. We're here in Japan, but we can't play this Pokemon Go.
Every day I was like, look at what we're doing. We're kicking on the Pokemon.
We were so annoyed by that.
That was bad for you.
Yes. So Pokemon Day, obviously this is the anniversary of the release of the first Pokemon games in Japan, and in 2016 it was the 20th anniversary.
That's right.
So it wasn't like out of the blue.
Yes.
It was like, oh, we're going to start doing this. I think it was like, you know, we have this anniversary. It's a big milestone anniversary for us. What can we do to make it big? And obviously, it's like, oh, Pokemon Day is a thing that people know, people look forward to. Like when we were at the GameStop trying to buy these cards, like they just had a big poster. It's like, see you on Pokemon Day.
Yeah.
Like they
have like activities happening on Pokemon Day.
They have so much stuff.
They have a lot of stuff
happening. But kind of the big focus globally in 2016 was this Pokemon Nintendo Direct. And I had to check how many years it took for the Pokemon Nintendo Direct to become Pokemon Presents. And it wasn't until 2020, which was a lot more time
longer than I thought.
Oh, I thought it was like pretty fast, but no, it was several years of it being Nintendo Direct before they flipped it, and then again, Pokemon took more control.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
yes.
They started out being, you know, the anniversary is tied to the video game portion of the Pokemon brand, obviously, because it's the anniversary when the games came out. So there was this bigger sort of component having to do with the games. But you can even tell from that very first Pokemon Day, they had bigger aspirations for this than just talking about games.
Yeah.
And you can tell that the Pokemon company, their big goal was to make this into like an annual thing. Celebration and also a place where people can come to for the big announcements.
Right.
So totally makes sense that they started to distance themselves more and more from the Nintendo Direct implication and the tie there, and started to do their own thing with Pokemon Presents. But yeah, I didn't realize it was until 2020.
Yeah, so there was the video which was streamed, and then in a lot of different regions there were things that were going on, and we'll talk about the U.S. Version of that soon. But yeah, I think something that really sets Pokemon Presents apart or the Pokemon Nintendo Direct and what it became, apart from the traditional Nintendo Direct, is like they always have some really nicely done video that's really pushing the nostalgia or the history of Pokemon. It's like it's like a feel good, like, oh, I'm so glad that I've been here for all these years, or I'm excited to jump in.
Yeah.
Like Nintendo, you don't really see.
You don't really see that. The history part of it. Nintendo
like maybe in the Switch 2 Nintendo Direct, they'll have some montage of like, oh my gosh, the culmination of all the hardware, the great experiences.
I don't know about that. Even that's like
such
a stretch.
It's a stretch for them.
Yeah.
It's a stretch, but they always have those really nicely, slickly done things in the Pokemon.
They also do so well with lifestyle in the Pokemon stuff.
Right.
Like Nintendo doesn't do a lot of lifestyle unless you're looking at an Alarma or something like that. But that's also very far in between. They're really pushing. They've been pushing this for a long time now. The Pokemon Company, where it's like, this is in every part of your daily routine, whether you like it or not. Like you're making a Pikachu pancake, you're brushing your teeth, you got the sleep, you got the thing. Like they really want you to like kind of think about them every hour of the day, even when you're sleeping apparently. And that always came through as something like very different than a Nintendo Direct, which is very much like news, like sizzle reel of the news. That's it, So they really try to sell you on the lifestyle of Pokemon.
So what was your reaction to the idea of Pokemon Day? Like, what do you remember hearing around the office? We're like, oh, we're doing this Pokemon Day thing. What do we think of this?
Yeah, I remember hearing about this, and I remember it being tied to the 20th anniversary, and immediately my mind went to like, oh yeah, this might be similar to some of the anniversary things that we've done in the past. Like you and I worked on the 35th Zelda anniversary. Yeah. I worked on both the 25th and the 35th Mario anniversaries, and I don't know what it is about these anniversaries. Nintendo is just bad at anniversaries, except for the Zelda one. I think they did a pretty good job with the 35th Zelda anniversary, but most of the time it's like they sort of have these aspirations to make anniversaries feel big, and they have like half measures to make it feel big, but ultimately kind of fall short, especially these Mario ones. They just kind of feel a little bit like...
The 2020 one had some cool stuff that got canceled.
Well,
because
that's not its fault.
It was 2020.
That was not its fault.
We're in another Mario anniversary year right now. I guess we're going to see. Maybe on Mario Day we'll see what they...
Is it 40th now?
Yeah, 40th anniversary.
That's right, Mario. Wow, Mario's
legit new decade.
Mario's getting old. Mario needs to start filing for his retirement.
Oh no.
But I remember like having like a cynical thought, like I wonder.
It's gonna suck.
No, I didn't think it was gonna suck, but I was just like, like I can tell they're trying to make this into a thing. Like, is it gonna stick? Because the Nintendo anniversaries never really stuck.
Yeah.
And Nintendo doesn't do that thing where it happens every year. It's not like the 36th Zelda anniversary, 37th Zelda anniversary. They don't do that.
It's not year to year.
It's not like Zelda Day happens on the anniversary of Zelda every year. That's what they wanted to do. And I was like, can they keep this up? Can they do this? Like, I definitely had that thought because Nintendo was so bad at celebrating anniversaries. Like, I couldn't fathom in my like tiny little mind a company that could actually do a good job of celebrating anniversaries. Sure. And then they, of course, did an amazing job, and then it's continued on. So, So that was, amazing to see.
We really can't undersell, like, the kind of, at times, adversarial relationship that there was. Because, it kind of depended on what branch you were dealing with. Because, like, we would interact with... Game Freak developers when they would come over, and they were great and wonderful and very like sweet and nice.
The brand teams were pretty tough too.
And even like Pokemon Company in Japan, like when you would get a glimpse of them, like they seemed okay, but it was really like the U.S. teams that were there were really like a lot of butting heads moments.
Yeah. Well, some of the people that were on the U.S. Pokemon team used to work at Nintendo.
Yes.
And there was several of them that had to leave their jobs at Nintendo because they moved the sales and marketing office to Redwood
So they're
City.
getting revenge? Is that what you're saying?
There was a little bit of salt, I think, at some times.
Right.
And there's this layer of adversarial energy, but also this layer of competition.
Right.
Which was very prevalent throughout like the NOA regions. Like we dealt with, we talked about and we joked around a lot about how, it was always NOE and NOA, like fighting to the death for, attention from Daddy NCL or whatever, like sibling rivalry. But there was definitely that kind of energy a little bit between the U.S. Pokemon Company and NOA as well. There was like this kind of tug of war for control. It was like, well, if you guys are talking about video games, you got to involve us.
Right.
We need to be able to make sure that
Right.
this shows properly on our systems. We need to make sure that we have involvement. And they're like, well, we're not talking about video games. We're talking about the brand, so you can't be involved. So go away, stop talking to us.
Yeah.
So it was like that relationship around it that made it a little
It was also like,
tension.
again, like this is something that changed around this time, but like, you know, letter of the law versus spirit of the law, where it was like, hey, we're cracking down on your pronunciations. And we would like have Reggie do a video, and they're like, Reggie needs to re-record this.
It's like,
we're not going to it's close, it's Reggie, like we can't get on his schedule again. You're just going to have to deal with it. Oh, well, we're going to hold a grudge about this.
Yeah.
Oh, we're really mad. Oh.
They
were melting down my beautiful ice sculptures. Like this, it was like, Oshawat's toenail isn't quite to proportion. Melt them all down. Like
melting it down was not brand.
There was a lot of stuff of that ilk.
Remember when they circulated that pronunciation video and made us all watch it? Yeah. It was like one person that was like basically listing 300 Pokemon and pronouncing their names.
It's like we'll do fine on this. Like let's maybe ratchet down the intensity on the pronunciation.
Pokemon.
It's
Pokemon. Pokemon.
Not Pokemon.
Not Pokemon.
Pokemans.
Not Pokemon. Not Pokemon. You have to Pokemon.
And certainly not Pikachu, like one of our esteemed co-workers like to say. Pikachu.
Pikachu.
Oh, somebody's gonna hear this and freak out. Pikachu.
And then also like now we're just getting to like a little tangent, but like there was also this thing where it's like the order of the the starters, not the starters. Don't you dare call them starters. Partner Pokemon have to be in a certain order.
Right.
You can't have one. You have to have all three.
And if you're writing it out, they have to be in a certain order. Yes.
And oh my gosh, how many times did you have to struggle writing an email because you had to look for the accented E?
Oh, I never did that.
Oh, I
never went that far.
I did that.
No.
I had to look up.
Listen.
I had to look up Beyonce. And then copy and paste the E.
She has the accent over the E.
That's how I would do it before. I would look up Beyonce and then copy and paste the E.
Look at you sucking up and kissing the ring.
Look.
For an email?
You gotta be. I was just doing that because I wanted my stuff to get approved.
I got no time for that.
I don't have time to fight them on stuff. And if I had a video from Reggie that mispronounced something, I better write the email right so I don't get called out for that.
But it was interesting that kind of mindset, like, I don't think like the higher ups were totally plugged into that because sometimes I have a conversation with Reggie and I would like bring it up. I was like, oh, you know, this is like sometimes this is tough, and he's like, I don't think he totally grasped like what we were all going through.
This was very much a people that were executing the stuff was going through versus the people that were like doing the strategy.
Yeah, they're like, this is a functional relationship. We're gonna make it work. Yeah. Like, just deal with it. Get through it. Find a solution.
Remember my near meltdown when there was a hair in one of the when we did that museum display at Nintendo World, and in New York, and we had framed these like it was like concept art or something. Yeah. And there was
so it's for black and white.
Yeah, there was like one single hair.
Was it your hair?
No, it was like a piece. Maybe it was my dog hair. You know, my dog hair.
Your dog hair is
everywhere.
It really is everywhere.
I have a German Shepherd, so he's very sheddy. So maybe it was my dog's hair. But like the lady from the Pokemon team, the scary lady, she walked up and looked at the display.
She probably had the white gloves on.
That woman was really...
The jeweler's loop, like, inspect... Oh, no, I don't like the look of this at all. What is this, a hair? Oh, no. This isn't going to do it all.
She was like, take that down and reframe it. I was like, okay. It was so scary. She was so scary.
So, despite the challenges, I was excited at the prospect of this because again, like we needed just a hit. We needed something to go well.
We do,
and we were just struggling with all these Wii U games. The Wii U sales were tanking. It was like we just need something that's going to go well. And this seemed like kind of a sure thing. Mm-hmm. And it was great that like so much of the news of this was very Nintendo oriented because again, I don't know how many people felt this way. I was just very nervous about Nintendo and Pokemon drifting apart.
You were very nervous about
more and more because I was like, they're very powerful. Like they could just say one day, you're like, we're done. We're not exclusive on Nintendo anymore.
I'm waiting for the day, honestly.
And
for this
now
happen.
things are going great, so they don't. I mean, they don't need to do that.
I don't know. They could still do it. I don't know. I mean, yes, things are going very well now for them.
Right, obviously. And then there's the very like convoluted ownership of all of these things.
The ownership thing is very convoluted.
That's the thing. So you would ask people, who you'd think would know the answer. Like,
They don't know.
Can you explain the relationship between Nintendo and the Pokemon Company? And most people couldn't even come close.
It was some like backdoor handshake in a dark
It's a real
sake bar.
old-timey business deal.
It was.
And nobody could properly explain it. And it was just like, maybe don't worry about it. Maybe just do your job and shut up was oftentimes the answer.
Mind your own business.
After they would like attempt to do it.
Mind your business.
Yeah, mind your business and get down
mind your business.
get back to
That's
work.
That's definitely what the vibe was around. Like, if you asked to clarify that kind of stuff, they would be like, mind your business.
But yeah, I got really nervous when they started putting out mobile games because I was like, I don't like where this is headed. That was the time where there was just the fear about mobile games in general. Like, all the consoles are going to go away. You're just going to have a phone. It's going to or an iPad. It's going to play everything.
And then there's this whole thing about Pokemon is the way to get the kid audience to Nintendo. Like, as kids ourselves.
Right.
How did we get to Nintendo? It was probably through Pokemon, right?
Yeah.
It was through Mario and Pokemon, but definitely Pokemon was a big
Yes,
part of that
yes.
equation of our own childhood. And to then we had the terrifying fear of people saying like, oh, these kids these days are not playing the consoles. They're just on mom's iPhone or the iPad and they're never going to touch a console ever.
Yeah.
And then now Pokemon's on these iPads
Right.
and iPhones and we're like, uh-oh.
Right. It just didn't
It's a little
smell
scary.
good. So again,
Yeah.
when we had the prospect of like, oh, we're going to do this big video with all these announcements, and it was very Nintendo focused
Well, it was
announcements.
called the Direct
and it was
before,
called a
too.
Nintendo
Yeah.
Direct. So I guess maybe that limited, the amount of other stuff they could put in there. I was like, okay, this is good. This is good on a number of levels.
They're mending the bridges
This
here.
will be positive, and this will be something that's
Yeah.
like people will like this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
so as far
there was definitely excitement around it.
Yes. So as far as what was in that first Direct, they were announcing the launch of Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow on the 3DS Virtual Console.
Mm-hmm.
Those have been taken away from us. We still don't have these. Maybe we never will.
Maybe we'll get it this time.
But look forward to your predictions,
Look
maybe.
forward to my predictions.
For more on that. With the reveal of Pokemon Sun and Moon, famously your favorite Pokemon games.
I love this game so much. I remember this reveal being such like hype, you know, and it was such a cool thing to have this unique setting for this game,
Right.
so people were excited.
And then there were also some bundles of the new Nintendo 3DS that had these cool custom faceplates
right.
of the original artwork, and also had the Virtual Console games pre-installed on them. Those were nice.
Very nice.
Those were nice.
Very cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a very Nintendo-focused thing. These videos are never as long as you think.
They're a lot shorter. Like
this one,
20 minutes.
This one was like in the 10-minute range.
Yeah.
And even like the one from last year, it was like 12 minutes.
12 minutes, yeah.
I think we always assume like, oh, it's a Nintendo Direct. It was
45,
it was 40
45
minutes,
45
roughly
minutes,
40 minutes, and it just kind of wasn't. So yeah, that's an interesting thing to go back to. Is like these are much more
compact,
tight, and like there's not the huge breadth of announcements that you.
Yeah.
You see some of these other predictions, it's like, oh my gosh, here's the 50 things I'm expecting. It's like, there's usually like, there's usually like 2 or 3 things at most.
Yeah, they're not going to get through 50 things in an
Right.
8-minute video.
Right.
And again, because it was a Nintendo Direct at the time until 2020, they couldn't really talk about other stuff. They had to talk about Nintendo things.
Yes.
Only.
Right.
So they were a little limited in the beginning
We
of
couldn't
this.
get the mandatory 8 minutes of updates on mobile games.
No.
What's happening in, Pokemon trainers
the cards.
or the cards and all that stuff, yes. Yeah. So anyway, so that stream, went great. People loved that. I mean, that was huge news to get those games on the Virtual Console.
Yeah.
But this New York event that we went to was in New York, and there was a couple of things that were a part of that.
Yeah, this was cool. We actually got to go to this. This is where we filmed that Nintendo.
How did we get to go to this, by the way?
I don't know how we weaseled our way.
Did we just say like we'd like to make a Nintendo Minute on this?
I think we must have pitched them on that.
I think one of us must have been working closely on Pokemon.
I was working on Pokemon
like,
Sun.
I need
and
to.
Moon.
Oh, you're working on Pokken Tournament too.
And I was working on Pokken.
There's a Pokken Tournament.
Oh, that's how I weaseled my way in.
Me though, I don't know.
You were just there for the.
I was a hangers on.
Yeah, I was working on Pokken.
Supervision.
I definitely was working on Pokken Tournament. I was the lead on that
Yeah.
game. Great game. We should make another one.
Were you the lead on Sun and Moon, or was I the lead on Sun and Moon?
I was the lead on Sun and Moon with Monica.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think I was getting out by that point.
You were
Pokemon.
you gave it to me. Yeah, I remember this very clearly because I was the lead on the communication side for Sun and Moon, and Monica was like the overall activation, the brand lead.
Great.
And I remember at the end she gave me a present.
Oh, what was it?
It was like this beautiful plate, like a Hawaiian-looking plate. She was like to celebrate the successful
Have
launch.
you thrown that away?
No, it's at home.
Oh.
I can take a picture of it. It's beautiful.
Prove it.
And she, I remember like later on when we basically had like a role reversal because I worked on Smash and she was on Smash. Anyhow,
what did you give her then?
I can't tell
Nothing.
you. I did get her something, but
you
I can't
can't tell me.
I can't tell you what it is. It's a secret.
Oh my gosh. Okay, interesting. So there were multiple components of this.
Yeah.
There was an event at Nintendo New York. These events, they're always a little flimsy, I feel.
Yeah.
Like there was not
a ton
happening, but again, like when we went back and watched this video, like one of the things that we showed off was this crazy line of people to get in the store that just wrapped around block after block after block.
Yeah.
That was always something that people would love to tell. Like, oh, look at we got the longest line.
Oh,
we had to wait for 4 hours to get in.
There's always this thing that happens too, like the Nintendo staff or the Pokemon staff, we're always there like a couple days in advance of the event, obviously, to plan and prep for it. There's always this conversation that comes up at the dinner the night before the event.
Oh, no.
It's always like after a couple glasses of wine have been consumed. And it's always somebody like a Reggie or someone that's like kind of famous saying like, well, 9 o'clock, time for me to walk the line.
Walk the line.
And be one with the people. And
Reggie was not at this event, to be clear.
Reggie was not at this event.
Reggie had better things to do.
Yeah, he's like, no, thanks. But that would always happen. You always have to like stop them.
Yeah.
You're like, don't do that. That's not.
You gotta scope it out.
You shouldn't walk the line though. Like,
all right.
I mean, Reggie shouldn't be walking the line at 9 p.m. in New York. I don't think so. No.
Not for this, no.
Not for this.
No, but the line was extremely long. But what was actually happening at this event? Not a lot.
No, they had shirts.
Those shirts were cool. Do you still have that shirt?
I do have that
I do not actually still have that shirt.
It's like a baseball.
That shirt did not fit me well.
That shirt was a strange fit,
but I should
have
have probably saved that shirt. I don't have that anymore. So I guess that's a good get if you're going to that event.
Yeah.
Everybody got one of those shirts?
I feel like yes.
Okay, that was good. They had some little photo op, and then
they had a mini museum of
some
stuff.
other little. It's like, is that worth standing in line
I feel like this guy. This is.
They had one of those.
This
there,
is not from the Pokemon Company. Like,
no,
this is
behind glass.
This is our own Pikachu.
Yes, this is our own
vintage
fat Pikachu.
Vintage Pikachu,
yes,
but it's
fat as can be.
It's very fat. But they had one of these behind glass. Yeah, I remember that.
Wow.
Put this behind glass.
Amazing.
Put this fatty behind glass.
A 20-year-old deflated stuffed Pikachu behind glass. That's worth standing in line for 5 hours to see.
We gotta rehabilitate.
You're gonna do some taxidermy to this apparently.
Yeah, he's a little worse for wear. Isn't he? Yeah. Anyhow,
and that was kind of it.
Right. There was like we had the Pokken tournaments at the GameStop.
Yeah, so that was the other thing.
Yeah.
And so there was like a tournament happening around Pokken tournament, and these were like the preliminaries or the qualifying rounds, or like what was this?
These were like the final rounds, I think.
But where was it ultimately? Like, did people go to like the Pokemon World Championships, or like what?
Yes,
where
that's
was this
exactly
eventually headed?
It was the Pokemon World Championships.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was like the play-in for that. But this was like the last round before you go to championships.
Okay, so this was at local GameStops.
Mm-hmm.
Was it GameStops nationwide or only?
Yeah, nationwide, and obviously there was one in
But
New
we
York.
were like making a big deal out of the New York ones.
Because it was all the same timing around
during
the
Pokemon
Day celebration.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember we went to both that location to watch the tournament, and then we brought a bunch of Pokemon people with us. Yeah, but it really wasn't like too much going on.
And then
in terms of a live event, it wasn't like they had, crazy
wasn't like a live
performances.
stream.
It wasn't like a live
it
was before the
something
days
happening
of
in a dirty
doing
GameStop. But then the big thing that the Pokemon Company was leading that was really a sight to behold was they rounded up 20 of these Pikachu costume characters.
I love them.
And they were caravanning them across town doing these different photo ops.
Yeah.
And we had seen in Japan they had done this, like, oh my gosh, did you know they have all these costume characters?
Yeah.
And they would bring them out and they would do little dances and
now
coordinated.
I feel like back in 2016 it was such like a wonder and a marvel to see it. But nowadays it's like all over TikTok.
It's old hat. Yeah.
It's an old hat now. They have a TikTok channel now that has like the Pikachus, the Eevees dancing around. Like they got all sorts of stuff.
But this was the first time they'd ever done anything like that in the United States outside of Japan.
Yeah. And it was like a big deal.
And we were not involved with this, but I think we were helping with the photography. We were taking like nice photos to send out over the wire.
Yep, we were going to help them distribute photos.
And the guy who was in charge of this, we know him. He works at the Pokemon company. He was really like
sweating bullets
in over his head.
It was a lot to like. You think, obviously this is going to be hard logistically. 20 of these things. One of these things is very difficult to handle logistically. Like we've had, situations where we had one Pikachu on like a morning show or at an event, and it is like they have a lot of guidelines on how and what you can and can't do. Just with the one, it's pretty hard. Like think about being that person that has to like corral 20.
Right.
In a busy city like New York. It was really, really difficult. I think actually there was like more they wanted to do around the city, but they ended up canceling a couple of locations because it was just getting too hard.
I mean, just like logistically, like one of those comes in a giant crate that's maybe like, I don't know, 8 foot by 6 foot for one of them.
Right.
And then it's like a whole to-do for the person to get into it. Cannot be seen by the public. Obviously, you need to have a private space to do that. And like if you're talking about going to multiple locations, like I don't know if you're renting like an 18-wheeler or something to go around Manhattan.
They basically had like a tour bus that followed them around where they could change because that's the only way you could do it.
And then I remember we were at the New York Public Library and they were like crossing the streets.
You had to help them cross the street.
And it was like these things like can barely walk and like
the cars were coming.
You need to cross the street. In New York, like the cabbie's gonna run Pikachu over.
There's a great photo of
That's
me
gonna be a different kind of photo.
Holding the little hand of the costume character, like trying to I'll put the picture here. Yeah. Try to pull it across the street, and it was just like
we need to go.
like trying to get across the street.
Oh my gosh.
And it was like we can only do like 2 at a time.
Yes.
So it took us like
20 minutes.
20 minutes to cross the street.
And then I remember there's like those little stairs to get. It's like, oh my gosh, how's Pikachu gonna get up these? It's just gonna tumble down. It's gonna be a whole thing.
And they had that cute little Von Trapp like Sound of Music whistle.
And our poor friend at the Pokemon company was just like on edge like the whole time.
He was literally sweating.
This is gonna fall apart. I can't believe this.
There's gonna be a photo of Pikachu getting run over by a car.
This is gonna be a disaster. Yeah, so he really bit off more than he could chew.
I like the choreograph though, because the only way that they can hear get into the same pose at the same time as if you whistle at them.
Yes, like Pikmin or something.
So they came up with all these like different kinds of like 3 sharp blasts means like do da-da, like do that. Like 2 blasts mean like do this little move. So they would be whistling at them and they would be like da, like doing the little.
Oh my gosh.
They're real cute though.
Yeah.
Real cute.
Yeah. So there have been other times they've tried. Like I think I forget what year it was. They lit up the Empire State Building.
That's right.
With some of the colors. That was kind of a cool thing.
There was in the Macy's parade and stuff too.
Yeah,
they do some like spectacle things.
For Pokemon Day, like they'll sometimes try and make a bigger deal of it. And again, this was just in the U.S. Like in other countries, there were other sorts of things that were happening, but they definitely tried to do something
make
bigger
it special,
for the first one. So that was a very interesting day spent in New York, going to all these different sorts of Pokemon events. So I guess just to wrap this up. Now that we're many years later, almost 10 years later, like what do you how do you feel about the approach to Pokemon Day as it is now or as it has been over these 9 years?
It's been really fun to look back on this because in the very beginning it was very much tied to the just sort of the video game portion of the Pokemon brand. But now, it's really about like everything that the Pokemon company, the Pokemon brand is doing. And video games is really just like a small portion of that. Yes, there's always going to be a lot of excitement and a lot of attention around what the latest Pokemon games are. But now I feel like even for myself, personally, like I've been like doing other Pokemon things that are not playing on a Nintendo device. Like we've been both playing the Pokemon card game on our phones.
Yeah.
Like I know a lot of people love like Pokemon Sleep. A lot of people, I watch all of the Pokemon movies. I love like Pokemon Concierge and even some of the anime. Like I really like watching the new anime as well. So they have done a really good job, I think, of just like broadening how you, as a Pokemon fan, like we both grew up playing Pokemon. It's definitely a part of our childhoods, and like I did not grow up playing the cards or watching the cartoons as much as a kid, but it's funny as an adult, like that's the things that I'm doing now. So they've done such a good job of giving any Pokemon fan, however you got into the universe of Pokemon, they have done a good job through this specific initiative to give you so many ways for you to like have fun with Pokemon and feel like you're like part of the Pokemon community, like whether it's like watching the shows or playing, getting into card games through the mobile game that makes it a little bit more accessible, or getting excited for traditional Pokemon video games. Like they have done a fantastic job of doing all of that.
I agree with all of that. I do though, from a marketing perspective, I don't love like the expectation that it creates around the news. Where
well, that happens.
If we have news, it's going to be here, and then people just kind of get on pins and needles of like, oh my gosh, the Megaton is coming, and sometimes you're going to have news that works for this timing, and some days you're not. But the expectation is always going to be there. Whereas, like, sometimes, with Nintendo Direct, like, we sometimes roll our eyes when people are like, oh, well, here's the schedule. It's always happened for the past 8 years. It's like, if you just do something the same time, it's actually not great marketing, because sometimes you might have a reason to do something at a slightly different timing. In this case, every time you're going to do one of these streams, people are going to expect your biggest and best news, whether you're ready or not,
to talk about it.
And they've had issues with some of these products in the past, and I wouldn't say that the way they've included these here have been the driver of those problems, but I just like the idea of having a bit more flexibility with this. But I guess without this, like, this is really kind of the pillar linchpin of Pokemon Day, so I'm not sure you could necessarily take it out.
I mean, they built it on this though.
Yeah, they did this to themselves.
They did this to themselves.
Right, but sometimes I do wonder if sometimes they're like,
you've painted yourself into your own corner.
This news would actually be better in 6 months, but Pokemon Day's next week.
Oh yeah, they absolutely have those discussions.
Right.
And the conclusion to that discussion is too bad included.
Yeah, and it doesn't. I mean, like they do share news throughout the year, but as far as the expectation being, give me your best shot here. That's what people expect now.
Well, it's like what happens with, the Apple conference in September every year. It's like they have that conference every year, and they're going to announce the new stuff.
Right.
Like you've done this, as a brand, you've put yourself in this position where you've given all your fans a schedule. So, yeah. I mean, for them, it could be challenging schedule-wise. I think for fans, it's like not as bad. It's like, well, you can just expect them to tell you stuff on that day.
And I mean, this does seem like, we joked about how lame Mario Day has been.
Yeah.
And I saw that thing actually recently where when I was at the grocery store, I was looking at the milk. Bar 10 was the expiration date. I was like, oh, it's that time. It's that time of year again. And, we joked about how lame Mario Day has been. But it does feel like they're kind of taking it down, but kind of being dragged by these partners of like, hey, let's share about the movie, let's share about this stuff. Like,
right,
they're having more and more news, and again, like the expectation grows around, oh, Mario Day, we're going to get something cool. And we know as Nintendo, like those expectations, they never like that. They always want to surprise you about what's coming. So I think they probably feel a little conflicted about that.
And also, we were talking earlier about this, like Pokemon is more than happy to take a very like broad sort of brand approach to their marketing and to how you are engaging with the Pokemon like stuff. But Nintendo hates that. So they don't want to do that. They don't want Mario Day to become like a Nintendo brand thing.
Right.
Unless they have a Mario game that they are talking about in March, like they could care less.
Catch
about
this
Mario
sale, 5% off. Awesome, buy it.
Buy the Mario Odyssey for 5% off. Yeah, exactly.
We did a really fun thing on Patreon, which is we asked our members to share their first Pokemon memory.
Oh my God, so cute.
And we got so many great responses that we're kind of going to sprinkle these across the episode in between segments. So
some of these are awesome.
Let's check out our first couple, and then I want to ask you for your first Pokemon memory.
Yes.
Our first is from Snazzle, the one and only. Snazzle says, I turned 8 about 2 weeks before Red and Blue released, and my parents surprised me with a Game Boy Color and a pre-order of Blue. 2 weeks is an awfully long time for an 8-year-old to wait, but once it arrived, I was all in. Most of my memories and nostalgia from those years are linked to Pokemon in one way or another. Watching the anime, going to Shinders, that must
Shinders.
To buy cool-looking imported cars, debating at school whether you could really push that truck by the cruise ship to get Mew. Good times. You're going to make a trip to Shinders, I got to say that.
Shinders.
One more before we move on from Mr. Andy Pong. When I was 7, I woke up on Christmas morning to the best present I've ever received. A lime green Game Boy Color with Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow.
Dang!
All three?
All three? Mr. Andy Pong
Andy
eating
Pong.
well.
Oh my
7 years old.
I'm not sure why my parents went all in with 3 games, especially since my 2 older brothers shared a single Game Boy and a copy of
someone's
Blue.
the favorite.
What?
Oh, you were the baby of the family, too.
But I'll
that's
gladly
your
take the
favorite.
youngest child favoritism.
Heck yeah.
At the time, my parents were not sold on Pokemon. It was the 90s after all, and those creatures could be demonic. So they probably thought I'd play it for a bit and get it out of my system. They could not have been more wrong. That Christmas marked the start of a lifelong love for Pokemon and handheld gaming. I've played every main series game and think they're all great, a somewhat controversial opinion in the fandom. Pokemon also introduced me to Nintendo. Without it, I might never have bought Nintendo consoles, played other Nintendo games, or even listened to this podcast, or paid to be a Patreon member. Maybe you too, Kit and Krysta, have a Pokemon to thank. It's crazy to think how many Nintendo fans today are here because of the early Pokemon craze.
I think I'm going to call your mom and dad and say thank you.
That is great, Mr. Andy Pong. Thank you.
Thank you. That's an amazing
So what is your
story.
first Pokemon
Yeah,
memories?
I remember I also had a sort of a similar thing where I got a Game Boy as a birthday present, and Pokemon was one of the games. My mom didn't get me any games; she just gave me some money, I think, and said, "You buy the game that you want."
Okay.
But I know you've been wanting to get the latest Nintendo thing. She knew I loved, She had bought me other Nintendo consoles in the past, obviously, so she knew this was going to be a hit. I had the blue Game Boy. And she was like, yeah, I don't really care what you guys, I don't need to approve your games. I don't think she heard anything
Was
about
she worried about the
demonic
demonism?
She wasn't worried about the demonic Pokemon,
Okay.
I don't think that the news did not reach her. But
But if it had?
Oh man. Could have been different.
Wait, Satan?
Satanic panic?
That's Satan? Oh no.
But I had this one friend. I think this must have been junior high. Yeah. I had this one friend. It was the same friend that got me into Final Fantasy. Oh. So we played a lot of video games together at the time, and her and I were really good friends. We did a lot of everything together. We played video games together. We used to read Harry Potter books together. She was the one that introduced me to the Harry Potter series. I wonder what happened to her. I haven't talked to her.
What?
I haven't talked to her in a long time.
What happened to her?
I haven't talked to her in a long time. I should look her up.
Oh my gosh.
Anyways,
Pokemon Day. Ring her up.
Ring her up. Annie, if you're out there, call me. So we got into Pokemon together, basically, and it was nice because I do think this is a very social game.
Yes.
And if you don't have other people around you who are playing, the experience is really different.
It is, yeah.
And there wasn't too many people in my school playing Pokemon. I think it was me, her, and maybe a few other people. But it was really, really important to have that person to ask about those questions about the cruise ship and Mew and trading and battling and stuff like that, and you just needed other people to play with.
Yeah.
And so she was that person for me. I think we ended up going to different high schools, which is part of the problem.
Was there a falling out?
No, not at all. We just ended up going to different high schools. I think that's why we didn't.
Was there a
stay in
boy
touch.
that caused
No
a
boy.
schism?
No boy.
No.
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. Yeah.
Okay.
Not at all.
Yeah, I had a somewhat similar story. So I'm a couple years older than you, and I was at high school at the time, and it was kind of at that age where some kids were kind of turning up their nose at video games, oh, that's kid stuff. I'm into I'm super grown up and edgy now that I'm
Skateboarding.
16 years old or whatever.
Girls.
But I had a friend who's still a very close friend of mine.
Oh, wow.
Who was one of my gaming buddies. There's this thing Pokemon that could be cool, but again, to your point of it being social. He's like, I don't, from what I'm seeing about it, I don't know if it's something I want to play by myself. Maybe we could get in on this together and kind of check it out, because I don't know who else around here is going to be into this, especially since Pokemon was a little kiddie. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It had more of a kid oriented feel.
This is where being a girl was okay.
Sure.
It was cute and
just put it next to your Tamagotchi.
It was next to the Tamagotchi.
Yes,
it was it was more accepted, I think, back in the day.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, this looks cool. This looks interesting. This looks like something along the lines that I would like. So he got red and I got blue.
There you go.
Because we knew we're going to be doing some trading. We got the link cable and we kind of played through it together, and we did the stuff. We traded, we battled. Mm-hmm. And it's good that I got exposed to it then, because a couple years later I went off to college, and like that's not really primo Pokemon hangout time, unless you're like really like connected with the right person who has that very similar interest. So I had kind of like a dark period of Pokemon after that, but at least I had like in the moment during that first craze.
Yeah.
It's like I had that very formative experience.
That's exactly what happened to me, because I went to high school.
Yeah.
And
fell out of it.
I fell out of it. I fell out of all video games, I think, pretty much for those few years in high school. I think at the very end of high school is when I got back into it.
Okay.
And in college, I got way back into it.
Yeah.
The college friends, the whole like dorm room, common room vibe was a big part of that. But yeah, if I didn't get into Pokemon in the moment, they must have just caught me right when I was almost aged out of it. So I was in like 8th grade, So yeah, if I didn't have her, I was just young enough to like still think these were fun and cool, that would have been a different story, I think.
But at the same, my interest and my focus was very much the game. So like there were other things happening, like the TV show. Like I've gone back and watched all of that, but in the moment, like
I didn't watch the TV show at all.
The cards.
I didn't do the cards.
I had friends who played Magic cards. We played Magic cards. So I think of Pokemon, I was like, oh, like that's too basic.
Yeah.
I think we would have been interested if it was a cool game, but I think we're just like, oh, Magic is like a more evolved, form of that game.
Right.
So my focus then was really the game, and
Mine too.
And I've since had to kind of catch up on a lot of the other
stuff.
stuff.
I obviously knew about like Pikachu in the way that I knew about like Hello Kitty or like Mario. Like he's cute, and like I did definitely had items like pencil cases and like merch.
Right.
It's definitely recognizable in that way, so that was good. But yeah, my main interest in terms of me having like a lasting memory and sort of becoming like a lifelong fan of Pokemon was from the games.
Yeah.
And then I really didn't get into it until I started working at Nintendo.
Yeah.
And then you had like a built-in, like everyone was playing, so you had a built-in social group, right?
Right. Yeah, I picked it up again after I got out of college. I think with the DS, I kind of got
DS I got back into it.
Yeah. So that was a good kind of ramp up for eventually working at Nintendo and needing to know a lot more.
I think the first Nintendo one that we both got into is probably Black and White, right?
No.
Diamond and Pearl?
Heart Gold and Soul Silver.
Oh, Heart Gold, Soul Silver. That's right. Heart Gold, Soul Silver.
Excuse you.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay.
So fun.
Wow.
We'll be back throughout the episode with some more formative Pokemon memories, but let's move on to the games we're playing, which is packed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games. Are you joking me?
Whoa, we've been busy.
And we're going to start off with Monster Hunter Wilds because the embargo is up for this, and we've been playing this game. And it looks like...
Finally, we can talk about it.
I think the Metacritic is at like 88, 89, which is kind of in the same ballpark as some of the last couple Monster Hunter games.
Yeah.
So we can find, we've been doing a million preview sessions for this.
Yeah,
but
I feel like I've been playing this game for a year.
Yeah, we've been playing the full game for the last couple weeks, so we can finally talk about it pretty openly.
Yeah. So I think the main thing, we've both been playing the single player story mode quite a bit. We're pretty like caught up to each other on where we are in terms of like...
I think I saw something in some of the documentation. I think we're maybe 3/4-ish through the story part.
Okay.
I think we're getting through the story.
I kind of want to get through the story, honestly.
I do too.
Like, I love a story, in a game, but that's kind of not what I'm exactly there for when it comes to a Monster Hunter game. Like, don't get me wrong, the story is... I think I'm more tolerant to it than you are. You're pretty much like, let's jam through this as fast as possible. But like, the story is pretty good. It's pretty interesting. The characters are fine. I like them. I do like the story wrapper. It's not like, it's not annoying in any way, but they do kind of lock you into doing the story.
So that seems. I think that's kind of the theme of this game is like, we're increasing the scope of Monster Hunter and kind of introducing all this new elements to it to make it feel like a more cohesive thing than we had before. Where it's like, when you're out there, it's like you're in an actual environment where you can see this ecosystem of things happening around you, and that's really cool. And the environments are really neat, and I like those. But yeah, this new emphasis on story. I can imagine them saying like, oh, this is a big new avenue for us to push into. The story, I mean, the other games have had stories, but it's always felt kind of like
an afterthought,
a little backburnery.
Right.
Whereas now it's like your player character talks.
Yes.
I don't remember
it's
that
in
happening.
the cutscenes.
Right.
You know.
They talk. There's a lot of cutscenes. There's a lot of stuff that happens in between.
There's a lot of emotional
missions.
things.
Right.
They want to play up the emotion, the connection between you and the other hunters.
Exactly. And obviously, once you get through that, you'll be in the post game and you'll be able to do whatever you want. And I think that'll be great because as of now, like I don't really love the story. I think it's fine. I think it's a little basic. I really don't like the characters very much.
Oh, you don't? I see. I don't mind them.
I think the voice acting in this game is not great. I think the line delivery is very flat. Like it feels like a game that came out like 20 years ago. The voice acting in this game, I'm not really a fan of it. The characters are just kind of like these kind of typical archetypes. Where it's like, all right, fine. Like there's not really that much that's super unique about you. A couple of them I find pretty annoying. Like that little kid who's with you, like. Especially because I'm also playing Like a Dragon that actually has like a very interesting and good kid character. Like in contrast to this, it's like this kid's
a little bland.
This kid sucks.
The little kid is a little bland.
He's annoying. So
he's traumatized.
But the thing that sometimes that really kind of pushes me off the story a little bit is like sometimes like. So in past Monster Hunter games, it's like I like the freedom. It's like, okay, I'm going to do a story mission, and now I'm going to take some time to go out and hunt, and maybe I have my eye on this set of armor.
You can do that.
And I'm going to do this. Well, there are some times where you will finish a mission, and it will immediately, bam! Now you're going into this story thing that you have to do that.
Well, they say, like, make preparations and then talk to this person when you're ready.
There have been times where I have felt like I have not had the freedom to really do what I wanted to do
in between
before
missions.
It's like, hey, you're doing the next big story thing now, whether you wanted to do it or not.
Okay.
And it's like, I really liked having more of an opportunity to play a bit more at my own pace and take the story in as my own pace, whereas I feel like now they're like, this is the most important thing now. Eventually, you can have that freedom, but now you're going to have a focus on the story. And it's like, I'd like to just be done with the story.
I haven't felt that as much. I definitely know that there are some instances where it's like you're in a single chapter for the story.
Yeah.
And, there is like these events that are happening that are supposed to be like dramatic and stuff like that but I've always found them to give you space, like after you finish defeating whatever monster is part of the story quest, they'll always say like, to start the next part of the story, talk to so and so before, and then depart.
Right.
So, but if you don't talk to them, you can do whatever you want.
Or sometimes, like the things that they'll throw at you is not necessarily what you would expect out of a normal mission. It's like, oh, well, if I knew it was going to be this, then maybe I would have prepared a little bit differently.
Yeah. There is a lot of expectation for you to do a lot of stuff sometimes, which is a part of this game that is just crunchy. This is the type of game that this is. I understand that. We have played many, many, many Monster Hunter games.
Yes.
And even though I have played hundreds of hours of Monster Hunter games, I still feel like I'm like a Monster Hunter noob. I just don't feel like I completely understand this game at all. It's fine. I get that this game is deep.
Yeah, I mean, there are some things that I would definitely not say that the story is a tutorial.
No,
at all?
Not at all.
They definitely leave a lot for you to figure out on your own, which is kind of a blessing and a curse, because it's like, who wants to play, a dozen hours long tutorial? Nobody wants that. But at the same time, like, there are sometimes it's like, maybe the game could be a bit more upfront about like what something means or how something works, or how, if I wanted to do this, how would I do it?
There's this one story quest we both kind of pinpointed as one that was like confusing for both of us and a little bit like frustrating, is you have, as part of the story quest, you had to like separate the monster from the horde by shooting poopy at it.
Poop to like get the other ones to run away. And there are some things that were like flashing on the screen to like tell you how to do it, but you can't pause this game.
No.
This is one of these games where it's like You can,
the monster is going to
kill you. You
kill
can pause
you.
it, but the thing's going to still come at you.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, this is like really intense because I'm trying to run away from this thing. There's like 5 of them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how do I...
There's like a lightning storm happening.
How do
you
I
have
load
to
up
select the poop.
How do I load up the poop and shoot the poop? And it's like, oh my gosh.
Now you have no health. We both failed that mission, I think.
Yeah, that was a tricky one.
So they do kind of give you, they throw a lot at you with this game. Besides these little nits, though, I think we're both having a good time.
Yeah, so that's
with the game.
So that's the flip side of that. Is like aside from what do we like or not like some of this new stuff that they're trying to push on. Like I think the actual like battling of the monsters,
the core part of monsters,
is as good as it's ever been.
It's amazing.
Yes, it's great.
Truly, truly amazing, and you feel so good. You feel so satisfying. You know the whole like point of this game. Like, honestly, this game is another dress-up game disguised as another game.
Says you.
Is what I think it is. This is why I like this game. Is because the whole point is to get cool, craft cool armor.
I got some comments about your outfit. Then.
You were very disparaging.
You look like an NPC, okay?
I looked great.
No, because I was trying to find you in this crowd and I could not find you because you just blended in with these other NPCs.
Looked so good.
Versus me, who has a 8-foot spear on my back.
An octopus spear.
Tentacles shooting everywhere.
I have 2 giant fire blades, and I'm dressed like...
I was not impressed.
Like Okami character. It looked amazing.
You were in some kimono.
It looked good.
I wasn't impressed.
It looked really nice. Anyhow, the gameplay, taking down the monsters, the feeling of, these weapons, the new additions they put in where you could switch a weapon, you ride the birdie thing, the sacred or whatever it's called. Like, all of that stuff is really good. And then we also played some multiplayer.
Yes.
That was interesting because it took us a really long time to figure out how to play multiplayer.
If you getting this game and you want to play multiplayer, like save yourself some pain and just look up a guide.
Yeah.
And by the time this game comes out, there will be plenty. But we were playing pre-release,
right,
with some limited documentation. We burned one night trying to meet up, and I think we both left that just being like.
I was a little frustrated.
We were so mad because we
frustrated.
couldn't figure it out.
It took us like an hour and we couldn't figure it out.
And kind of in true Monster Hunter fashion, like it's not as streamlined as it could be. And the whole time I was thinking, this is not 2013 and we are no longer on a 3DS. It doesn't have to be this hard. We're on a PS5. There's a very powerful system. It should be a lot easier to get into a game with your bros. But we eventually figured it out.
Now it's easier for us.
It's fine.
We did the foundational things that we need to do.
It's easy to make the wrong decisions or make the wrong assumptions based on like the menus.
The menus.
And there's so many things in the menu. Or it's like, do I need to do this linking or that linking? What does that linking mean? I don't know, but it's probably that based on what it sounds like. But it's not that.
And you have to friend yourselves a couple different ways.
Right.
Squad up,
there's multiple things to get into a game together.
Yeah.
And now that we know it, it's like it's fine.
Yeah.
But first time
we did like try to test it because once we set up our like squad finally, now we can easily get it. We like tested it out. It was like a lot better. So
we were telling our friend who works at Capcom social media, like, you better get these infographics ready.
He's like, I'm making them right now.
You better get these ready because this was rough.
This is a little rough.
But once we did, it worked totally fine.
And it was so
and it was
fun.
Great. It was great. It was just the 2 of us, so it'd be really fun when more people.
Yes, we're waiting for more people to get in.
You can create I think they call them squads, which is like a larger depository of players. So we're gonna have one of those for our community.
Yeah, we're gonna have a Kit Krysta squad.
We'll put that in Patreon when the game is out. But I'm playing with the Lance, you're playing with the dual blades, as you always do. I've been away from the Lance so I was thinking back. I played the Lance on the, was it 3 Ultimate? I think, where you could switch between the 3DS and the Wii U.
Yep.
And then on 4, I did the Insect Glaive, and then in Rise...
You did Hunting Horn.
I did the Hunting Horn. I don't think either of us played Monster Hunter World on PS4.
No,
I didn't play that one. I skipped that one.
Yeah.
So it's been a while since I've been on the Lance. I love the Lance. I think it's great.
Yeah.
You have a shield, so you can block. You can block a lot of stuff. It might be a little too
OP.
You might be too much of how much you can block.
Oh.
But I like it. Kind of the trade-off is like you're a little slow to move around versus you. I'm sure you're just zipping around.
Yeah, I like
all
how
over the
fast
place.
I am. We were joking around when we were playing together. I was like, every 10 strikes from me is one poke of your spear.
Right.
I'm so fast.
But there's so many weapons and they're all so deep. And having that second weapon, like I don't think I'm taking full advantage.
We both have the bow.
I'm using the bow.
Yeah.
But
doesn't do a lot of damage.
I often don't remember yet that I was like, oh, I can switch that.
Yeah.
So I should probably fold that more into my routine.
I want to do that thing where you use the hunting horn as your second weapon and buff yourself and others. I don't know how to use the hunting horn.
It seemed like ranged was the way to go, but maybe not. Maybe another different type of, like maybe, what if I use the dual blades? To have something that's all faster.
Or maybe I should get one with a shield.
Or, yeah, you could do the sword and shield, or I think the great sword has some blocking. Blocking too. But I mean, it's like endless, like how deep the combat can be. And they do give you some very helpful information of like, here's all the combos that you hear. Here's all the offensive moves that you can do and how they change it. Like that's very nice. They do a really good job of.
I need to know
of giving you that because otherwise I'm back to watching. Gaijin Hunter videos. And I think he's retired for the last several years. So I need to find a new person who's doing those.
Yeah, I do like the new focus attacks too. Those are good. Yeah. Like I like the cool special that I can do on the dual blades. If you like get your focus all the way up to max, and then you target one of the wounds, and then if you're on dual blades, you can do that thing where you like roll down the spine of the monster, and it just looks so good. You do so much damage.
All right.
It's awesome.
Great.
I got to ride the monster a few times when we were doing our
little you can jump on it and stab it that way, and it's kind of like a little mini game of like bucking bronco.
Yes, you manage your stamina.
There's a lot of different environments. They've mostly shown that kind of like plains.
Deserty area,
which
I like the jungle a lot.
I actually like that plains a lot. Like I think it's got a lot of personality to it, and there's a lot to do. Yeah, so there's a jungle.
There's an ice area.
There's ice. There's kind of this like volcano-y. I don't like that one.
That one is tough. That was a tough area.
Yeah. And it's before that's like kind of oily, and you're like, just like
that oil
slopping through that.
Was
that bird,
yucky.
That nasty bird.
It looked like a garbage bag filled with oil. It was disgusting.
That was one of the. So there have not been a lot of returning monsters we've noticed.
I know. Where's the Rathalos Raytheon?
So far, it's been very heavy on new. There's a couple returning ones, but so far they've been new and they've been cool.
Yeah, I like them
we did
a lot.
one.
The Ray doll I liked a lot, which is like that like fish. Oh no, that's the electricity
the lightning one. Yeah.
And then we also did the
that one's probably the closest to the Rathalos kind of chain where it's kind of a dragon thing, but it was more electric focused. But that
one was fun. I like that one.
There's been some really cool monster designs. So I think
the armor designs look cool too.
Yeah, I think we both know like the real meat of this game is post story and multiplayer. So. We're not completely done with the story yet, and I'm sure that this is a game that Capcom's going to support like for a very long time in a very big way. So I think we're just like let's wrap up this story and with our friends group and our community. Like let's all get there.
Good thing,
and then we're going to have an even better time.
We'll be done with the story, and then hopefully when the game comes out, people can like start joining us in some of the hunts too.
Yeah,
that would be fun.
Right. Yeah. So we'll keep checking in on this game. But it looks like there's a lot of excitement around this one.
Yeah.
You've been playing a new game that I don't even know how to pronounce it. Maybe you don't know.
I think it's supposed to be like Illuminati, so I'm going to say Inkulinati.
That's really the name?
Yes, that's
Inkulinati.
Really... Yeah, but I think it's supposed to be like Illuminati, like a play on the word Illuminati. Anyways, besides this
Krysta?
Besides the game name being very difficult to pronounce, so this is a developer that actually you sent to me a while ago. You don't remember this.
I don't remember this at all.
The developer is called Yakuza Games.
Okay, because you're like, oh, it's from such and such games, and I was like, I've never heard of this.
You sent it to me.
But apparently, I sent it to you. So good on me.
They make this game, and they're working on another game called Scriptorium. I think that's in early access right now, but basically, it's in the style of Pentiment, which is that kind of illuminated manuscript.
I'm looking at it now. Yeah.
Sort of game that I like because I love Pentiment. Funnily enough, you can choose Andres, the main character from Pentiment, as a character in this game.
Oh, they have like a little crossover.
Oh, that's fun. Very cute. But the studio basically makes these types of games. Like this is like their one-trick pony. Is that they make illuminated manuscript games, which is awesome. But this game is about a year old, so it's not new. It's on Switch. I'm playing on Switch. But It's such an interesting concept. It's like a sort of turn-based strategy game, and you play as basically like an artist, and you draw units onto the game field. So you can like you can draw an archer or draw.
Are you playing as the alewife?
I'm playing as a damsel.
Oh, okay.
But yes, they have like knight, alewife, like pope or whatever. But you basically draw your units onto the screen. You have limited ink, so you can only draw so many characters. You're looking at a photo of a bunny.
Some sort of a farting donkey?
Tootin?
What is happening?
That is one of the moves you can do.
Fart on these
guys? You can fart on them, and like it gives them a headache, quote unquote. It's hilarious. But the gameplay kind of reminds me of like Fire Emblem a little bit. It's like very like turn-based strategy.
Now, what's going on here with these? You mentioned these hands.
So it's like a real person's hand.
So you actually see this happening?
You see the hand happening when you're drawing. And then they had like a cutscene in between these two chapters where it was like a full motion video of like a real nun from like the middle.
Like a video?
Yeah. It's really weird. But I kind of liked it a little bit.
Huh.
So you have two kinds of like mechanics. You have the drawing where you draw a character onto the screen, and then that character can do whatever, like shoot a bow and arrow, use a sword, fart, whatever. There's also these hand gestures that you can do where you could like push other people's characters around the screen. You can move yourself. You could even like poke people and like do damage. So there's like sort of two sets of actions you are managing throughout this throughout each of the levels. And yeah, the idea is either they give you like some sort of challenge, like defeat all these monsters on the screen with the characters that you have, the ink that you have, or you're dueling against another artist and they're drawing their characters and doing stuff to you and you're drawing your characters. It is so fun, super fun. So if you like Fire Emblem type of gameplay, you would like this.
This is 2D. 2D.
Yes. 2D.
Like
literally looks like a book.
Right. So interesting.
And there's cool items you can find, little secrets, sort of little like little events that happen in each of the maps. I think they said that each of the events is like random. So the next time you do another run through, it could be a different set of scenarios.
Okay.
You can pick different characters as well, and they all have their different stats that are good and bad. So
all right.
Yeah, I've been really enjoying. I've been playing that like sort of alongside all my other games, but yeah, all of a sudden I think it was like the 1-year anniversary of that game or something. So of this game, so I saw the developer, the studio was like
Inkulinati Day.
Inkulinati Day.
Was it?
Bigger than Pokemon Day, apparently.
Wow. All right.
I saw them like talking about it, and I was like, "Oh, that's right! I meant to play this game, and I totally forgot." And I guess they're making another game called Scriptorium. I haven't checked that one out yet, but it also looks very much up my alley. It's like you're. I think the premise of that is you're working as a artist making these kinds of illuminated manuscripts, and it's more of like sort of a RPG kind of game. So, anyways. I love it.
That's cool.
I love an illuminated manuscript game.
I
a
guess
very
so.
Specific genre.
Hot new genre that's tearing things up in 2025.
For me and me only, apparently. I'm still thinking about Pentiment and how good it was.
Oh, gosh. I have checked out Avowed.
Yes, I want to hear about this.
I was not initially going to do, but I just on podcasts that I listen to and things that I've been seeing online and people whose opinions I trust, it's like, this sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
So I was like, I've got Game Pass and I should check it out. What I don't have though is a ton of time because I'm currently playing Monster Hunter and Yakuza in Hawaii.
Yeah.
So part of me was like,
a third game.
Maybe I won't like it, but unfortunately I do like it. I'm sorry to report back that I like it and I might want to keep playing it.
To your great disappointment, you love it.
I only started it last night, and I only did kind of the first chunk, which I think is the tutorial. But it makes a really good first impression. I think just when we first saw this, I was like, oh, this is looking like one of those Bethesda games. It's very like kind of Skyrim-esque. It's got the more kind of like medieval fantasy setting.
I like that.
And it very much, and this is what I've heard people saying in reviews, like it's kind of a streamlined Bethesda game that is making some decisions about content to maybe not include, whereas Bethesda would choose to include it to make a huge grand scope of game. But the things that they're going to do really well.
Yeah.
And I think that's
smart.
That's been my experience so far. And I think I've seen that this game is, if you just kind of go straight through it, it's like 15 to 20 hours.
Okay, so it's not like overwhelmingly
versus
huge.
the like incredible sprawl of something like Skyrim, where there's like so many things that you can do. I really like the combat so far. It's very customizable, where you can choose, like you kind of have two hands and you can choose different combinations of things to have in your hands. And there's even like multiple loadouts, so you can just like hit a button and just like bam, switch between the loadouts, like kind of on the fly. I'm playing obviously as kind of a more melee character.
Sword?
Well, you start out with a spear. The spear, but just like the feeling of it is like very good. There's like a lot of like feedback to it.
Okay.
And then later on, once I beat this kind of like boss character, I got like a big like warhammer thing, and that's obviously yes, and that's I think the class I'm playing is called the war hero. Okay. So they're stronger and better suited to the big heavy weapons. But I also picked up like a spell book. And you're literally holding a book in your hand that's got all the scribbles on it. And from there, like it's all elemental spells.
Like corn?
When I used it, like when I pushed the button, like a little radial menu would come up and I could choose, fire, lightning, ice, whatever. And I could just do that because I was holding this book. So I didn't have to be in that class. I was like, I'm holding this book. And it's funny, like when you're running, then you like close the book and like run around and then you open it up again, but I'm like holding this book up with this spear. So I'm like this is very modular. This is very, very customizable.
But you don't drop your book.
Don't drop the book. You need that. You need a wrist strap for your spell book. So I was really liking the combat. It just felt very snappy, very impactful, very responsive, very well done. Which are a lot of things that Skyrim isn't. Yes, to be honest,
true.
like combat is not something
a little sluggish.
Yeah, those Bethesda games have never done a great job with the combat. So it was really nice to see a good focus on that. The story, like I'm still trying to get a handle on what's going on, but it seems like there's some affliction that's going through the world that is giving people kind of like the Last of Us thing, where they're growing mushrooms out of their body.
Scarlet rot, like in Elden Ring?
Your character, I forget what the phrase is, but it's like you're touched by the hand of God. So you have the mushrooms.
Immunity.
No, you also have the mushrooms, but like not the bad kind. So in the character creator, like you have to pick like some degree of mushrooms coming out of your head, which is very like, okay.
How much mushrooms do you have coming out of your
head?
Well,
I chose one that kind of looks like a horn, like a deer antler, and then I have this other one that's coming out of my forehead. That's like, so you can go.
What kind of mushrooms?
All kinds. You can go
a
crazy.
shiitake?
All kinds of
oyster?
Mushrooms. You pick whatever you want. You can go crazy with the mushrooms on your character. Like it's really like, oh, wow, okay, this is a decision.
So this is like realistic Toad.
You're growing mushrooms out of your head. Different types of mushrooms. There's a lot of customization you can do with how many mushrooms you want growing out. I wasn't expecting that. I'm
not really understanding this.
So
okay.
I mean, it ties into the story,
very
and you're finding you wash up on this island because your ship gets shot down. You're like, wait, these are our guys who shot us down, and you find out like they've been afflicted with the mushrooms, and they've gone crazy, and they've turned evil. So I think the story is going to have something to do with discovering
the cure to the mushrooms.
I just kind of I stopped when I got to the first big city, and I imagine this is where the game will open up a bit. The world is very colorful,
yes,
which I like.
I like the way that looks.
Looks really nice. I mean, it just feels like a real like down to business like RPG, like no fluff.
I like that.
All really good stuff. It just feels really good to play. Which is great. So I'm gonna try and find a way to keep going with this. Like as they keep bringing these games to more systems, it's like could this be on the Switch too?
This definitely could be
probably,
on the Switch too, right?
Probably.
Why not?
I mean, it seems like it got a good reception on the Xbox, but why not? If this is the strategy, why not bring it out a bunch of other places too? But again, like we have Game Pass, so you can play it basically for free.
Yes, of course.
I do think, also this thing they're doing of like this is an Xbox. I do think you could, if you wanted to get in on these games, like, and you didn't have, you could do it that way, like of not having an Xbox and just like streaming it through your laptop, or if you have a Steam Deck, like you can do it through that. Like, I think you're at a point where you can do that.
Yeah.
Like that streaming is still in beta, and you'll sometimes hear about like when a big game comes out, like, oh, I had to wait 5 minutes to get in the queue and for that to work out. But like,
it's usually not that bad.
It generally works really well. The games look pretty good. I haven't had any major issues with it, and it's impressive the way that it works and how smoothly that it works. Obviously, it's dependent on your connection, but it's worked fine for me. So, and I know a lot of people kind of joke at that strategy, but it's like, yeah, they're getting there on that. So that's
the technology soon will be able to do it seamlessly too, I think.
Yeah. And again, like Xbox is continuing to build some momentum. They had Indiana Jones, which people like. Now they got this, which people like. This also does have this had a bit of a Fable kind of feel to it.
Is it funny?
It's a little funny. Oh. Yeah, I don't think it's going out of its way to be funny, but just like some of the characterizations
it's a little more lighthearted.
Were a little lighthearted.
That's good.
So far. So yeah, I
like that. I like it when it's not too serious.
I think you should check it out.
I will.
Yeah, I think you should, because you can definitely play like a full magic character.
Oh, good.
There's only a couple character classes. It's
I want
like
to know more about the mushrooms.
It's like war hero, ranger, and then just like full on wizard type thing. Yes, you can learn all about the mushrooms.
And the mushrooms.
Right. So like I mentioned,
you're still also
playing Like a Dragon, Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii. Have you started this?
No, I still haven't started it. I've been busy with Monster Hunter.
So again, like I'm juggling all these games, so I haven't had as much time to dig into this as I would have liked. But where I left off last week, I was just getting my ship. So now I've been able to see kind of the ship combat, the ship exploration, which is really fun. I actually think this is like my favorite thing in the game so far, which is you can kind of sail around and you get into these very fast-paced ship encounters with other pirates. And like you have a couple different weapons, like you have just like a straight ahead like machine gun that your ship can do. If you go to the sides, you can shoot the cannons, which are more powerful. You can even push a button and go into just controlling Majima on the boat, and he has like a couple shots like rocket launcher that he can shoot. And it's really cool because it's like you zoom right in on the ship and he's like running around. It's like seamless. That's a pretty cool thing.
Slick.
It's slick that they've got that in this game. But these are really fast. Like these encounters are not lasting more than like 90 seconds.
Oh, that's good, because you don't want it to be like too
It's not like the Assassin's Creed 4 where it's like, we're
coming
along for the broadside again. Your ship can drift.
You gotta come about.
Your ship can drift. Like you can hit a turbo button and drift and like do a really fast turn.
I wish a real ship could do that.
When you're sailing around, there's all these kind of like wind things that give you boost and they're like chained together.
Okay.
Like, they know like we don't want this to be tedious. We don't want this to be slow.
Real fast action based sailing stuff.
And then you have this treasure map where along the way, like they'll be like, oh, there's some treasure over there. And it'll be like a small little dungeon that'll take you maybe 5 minutes. And at the end, you'll get some treasure, which is, there's like a lot of like rings. There's like an image in the game of like his hand. And you can equip all these rings.
Stacking rings
that give you different power-ups. Or there's
it's a very pirate thing.
Or there's other stuff that you get that's just basically money. So the ship stuff is neat, and you have to customize your crew, and you level up your crew. You can give them different jobs.
Okay.
Like, you're in charge of the cannons because you're good at cannons. And then when you go on land on those missions, you also bring a couple of those guys with you.
Recruit them and stuff.
And they're just like computer controlled, but they're like, oh, this guy's good for punching. This guy's got a gun. This guy can block stuff. So
they're all Yakuza on the boat.
I've been recruiting them, and it's a motley crew.
It's a motley crew.
Like I recruited. Do you remember? So I did finally get to Hawaii. Do you remember the guy who
had Honolulu?
Yes, Honolulu in Hawaii.
In Hawaii, yes.
Do you remember the guy who had the scheme? He made the Segway things.
Yeah.
So I found him and I recruited him to be on my ship.
Oh, that kid is.
Yes.
A little nerdy.
So he's joined my crew. So that's kind of my what I'm doing now.
Have you had any encounters with Tomizawa, your hated emoji?
No.
Thank goodness.
I hope maybe I can punch him out. I don't want. He's not allowed to walk the plank.
Walk the plank. Yeah.
Yeah. So right now I'm at a point where I'm in Honolulu, and they're like, there's this thing that you were aspiring to battle in, this ship combat in this like lawless part of the sea, where all the like criminals congregate, and they're like, your ship can't cut it. You need to upgrade your ship. You need to get a bigger crew. So right now I'm like trying to get a bigger crew, trying to get more money to upgrade the ship, and then I assume I'm going back there and doing some tournament to shoot more boats.
Become the head pirate.
Yeah, but I am starting like I've gone to the bar. Remember the bar where you were like crashing in the
upstairs?
In the upstairs.
Yeah.
I'm once again crashing there, and they're like, oh, there was another gangster who was coming here a few months ago, and they do kind of mention
that's so funny.
Other things like that. So it's a different kind of game. Again, it's more action focused. It's a bit more streamlined, but it's really cool. I wish I had more time to play it, but I do want to work my way through it, and I think you should play this too.
I will be starting this week.
Yes. Next, Omega 6.
Oh my gosh, this was amazing.
So this is a game that's being led by Takaya Imamura, who is ex-Nintendo.
Yes.
And he is the very legendary artist who worked on Star Fox and F-Zero and created Tingle, among many other things.
Yeah.
This is a new game that he has. He left Nintendo during the pandemic.
Yes.
And he worked on a manga of Omega 6, which is this new IP, the sci-fi IP that he created. And he, in the recent years, worked on a game of it as well. We actually had a chance to talk to him last week, and we're working on getting that video in shape. Probably won't be out until next week.
Yeah, just because it's busy.
Because we have
a
much stuff coming this week, but it's a really interesting conversation, so you can look forward to that. But the game itself is really cool. It's kind of like, I think they were aiming for the Super Nintendo kind of 16-bit generation style adventure game. And it's the story has an interesting premise where it's like it's in the future, and humanity has kind of made contact with aliens, but at the same time, humanity has found a way to stop aging. So it's like, we have too many people on Earth, and now aliens are hanging out here, and we need to start exploring these other planets to find a place to live. So you play as these kind of like android characters who have been set out to, find habitable
new
planets.
Yeah.
It's got a very kind of like cartoony style to it. It feels like a pretty, I don't always love these adventure games because sometimes I'm like, what do I do? What am I supposed to do? I can get hung up on like a puzzle or like a pixel hunt or something, and I find that frustrating. I played a couple hours of this. I haven't had those issues. It's been pretty clear like what I've been needed to do, but there's still a lot of options of like exploring or talking to people or going to different areas and seeing different things. So that's been cool. Something that I was surprised that this game had is it has kind of a combat system.
Yeah.
Which most adventure games don't necessarily. It's done through rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah.
But there's kind of a like strategic way where they show you like you can see one of your enemy's moves, but the others like it's like a card. It's like the card is turned. So it's like, well, he's got this many papers left.
So you have to like kind of take an educated guess.
Make an educated guess of what they're gonna do. And it's like you have a certain number of rock, paper, scissors that you can do too. It's neat. It's a cool thing. I did not expect it to be in a game like this. It works well. It's a nice little thing to switch it up. And he was even saying like if we do a sequel, like he might try and expand on the action portions of it. So I think this came out in Japan a little while ago, and they're getting ready for the English release. But I think if you like those kind of visual novels or adventure games, like this is really cool. It does have I think the story premise is interesting.
It's really interesting, yeah.
I might be interested to check out the manga if I can get my hands on it. But this kind of came out of no. This was not really on my radar before they reached out and like, oh, do you want to check this out and talk to him? And it's like, yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah, it's great. We had a really interesting conversation with him about like what it all took to do this, and also about his time at Nintendo. He worked with a lot of the Nintendo legends. Is a legend in his own right, and so it was a really interesting conversation.
Yes.
Yeah.
So aside from losing to the final boss again and again in Elden Ring, what has been happening?
Getting bodied, absolutely bodied.
There have been other things happening, right?
Yeah, so after we could not beat the boss, that we as in me and my summons,
Hey.
we decided to do some other stuff. The one thing that I hadn't done in the main game is I never beat Malenia. I'd finished the main game.
And Malenia is an optional boss?
Optional boss / optional area,
but kind of iconic for being hard.
Yeah, and just interesting that I never finished that part of it. And I had said to myself after I beat, the final non-optional boss in the main game that I would go back and do this eventually. And they eventually never came, obviously. But I was like, you know what? Maybe I can try to do that as a way to, level up some more and just keep kind of doing stuff in this game.
Yeah.
And maybe there's a useful item that comes out of it or a remembrance that I can use. So that's what I did. I went to that whole area in the main game, the consecrated snowfield and then the Erdree, which is where Malenia is. I never got that stuff. Oh. So I basically went on a little quest to open up that area. And it was actually kind of fun going back to the main game. I mean, it's, the worlds are so connected. It doesn't feel like totally different, but it was nice to do sort of a bit more, dungeon kind of stuff before getting to Malenia. I kind of enjoyed the bit more exploration because I just never got that area, so it was a good excuse for me to do it. And then I did beat Malenia, so that was good.
How many tries was that?
Maybe 20?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I basically needed the tries to figure out the second phase. Her second phase was like
those phases.
The
those
timing
phases will get you.
That timing of that second phase, I was really confused by. I was like, when do I roll? Why am I just getting one shot killed? But in the second phase at full health. Once I figured that out, roll to the side, not back. That's what you have to do. Anyhow, able to beat her, and I did get a remembrance from her that is. Something to do with scarlet rot, which is like a kind of poison in the game.
Remind me, what are remembrances?
That's what you get from defeating the bosses. You go and trade it in at the round table.
Oh, yes.
Remember, you can either get a spell or usually a spell or a weapon.
Right, okay.
Usually it's pretty powerful as well, so those are good. I did read that the boss in the DLC is quite weak to that thing that I got from Malenia.
Here we go.
So I was like, maybe I'll use it next time.
One shot next time.
Here we go.
First time.
Okay.
I guess this video is coming out sooner than we thought.
I did, do some other stuff where I took down some just regular overworld bosses in the DLC as well. Like I fought some more of the dragons that were just kind of hanging out in the world. I looked up some more potential spells that I can get that maybe would be a little bit better than what I was using.
Okay.
So yeah, I've been playing a little bit every day, just and trying and attempting the boss a little bit every day.
What if you beat the boss when we're not here?
I won't let myself beat him. I'll just.
That would suck if you're like, I've got him, and then it's like, well, now I just have to lose.
It's okay. I'll just have him. Oh. I'm not going to right now. I need to learn the pattern. Yeah. I need to learn the timing.
Yeah. Have you experimented with these other summons? So I think there's some combination of the summons that you could still get even better.
I think so too. I think people were saying the sort of the knight guy is good if you have a mimic tier out. You can try it that way. There's a lot of different combinations you can do, which I love. I like that. So I've been just kind of playing a little bit. I have been managing to more consistently get him to a second phase. Okay. And I did survive the second phase a lot longer this time. I learned how to run away and how to roll out of that AoE attack that he has in the beginning. Yes. That was pretty tough. So yeah, we'll see. I'll keep plugging away at it. That's the fun part about this game. You just keep chipping away, and then you kind of figure out what. Eventually, you'll get it. Is the thing. Eventually, you will beat this character. Right. That always happens. So you're going to be all right. Just eventually you'll learn when to roll and when to run.
One win for you, 100 wins for them.
That's right. But eventually you will do it.
Yes.
So that's the fun part about this game, you know.
Those are, the games we are playing.
Wow.
Let's wrap up the segment with some more Pokemon memories. First Pokemon memories from Elden Ring to this. Ninja11 says, being a child in Pokemon's target demographic during the Nintendo DS era was truly magical experience. It was a time when Pokemon games were considered to be among the best games on the hardware. In addition to having 2 of the best mainline Pokemon generations, they were also firing on all cylinders on the spin-off front. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Sky has the best narrative in any video game ever. Whoa!
Really?
Pokemon Conquest has the most amount of content in any tactical RPG ever. Pokemon Ranger made drawing circles incredibly fun and also ruined my DS touchscreen. They had all these amazing games, and as a child with ample amounts of free time, I would play them and squeeze every drop of content from them, and there was always something new and fun to do.
Wow.
And Anthony Pipetti says, Pokemon was a big part of my childhood, but I didn't play any of the games until Ruby and Sapphire. I grew up watching the original anime, collecting cards, and even going to the theater to watch the first movie. But I didn't have any handheld systems until I got the Game Boy Advance when I was in 3rd grade.
Yeah.
I remember I wanted to name my male Trico Joey, but at that age, I didn't know what the symbols next to their name meant. And to this day, my female level 100 Sceptile is named Joey. That's amazing. That is great.
Oh, that's adorable.
A couple more stories to come later on, but let's get into the news. The Gold Points era
Has ended.
is coming to an end. Out of the blue, Nintendo announced that they are ending support for the My Nintendo Gold Points on March 24th. That's really soon.
Yeah, I just used mine to buy that game on Switch.
And no real explanation was given. I think if you still have the points, you can still use those after,
points,
but you just won't be earning those points from the games that you buy.
Right.
And then they have also kind of in their Q&A said that the vouchers are not going to carry over to the Switch 2. Those will just be for original Switch games.
Right.
I'm less surprised about that.
Of course.
But what do you make of this?
Well, it sounds like they might be revamping some of the stuff ahead of the Switch 2 launch.
Why would they do that now then? Why announce that now?
I don't know. Maybe they just
This will end before the Switch 2 Nintendo Direct happens.
still want to distract you, I guess, with stuff.
But if they have some great new thing, then that's a great thing to talk about. And then you can just bury this. It's like, oh, by the way, those good points you wouldn't want again, those are going away.
I don't know. Yeah.
Now that I've thought about this some more, I'm more of the mind that this is just going away. I'm sure some bean counter was like, did you know how much money we're giving away in these gold points? Do you ever know at any point in time how much money you have in gold points? Or is it always just like, oh, free money? Why are we giving people free money is what this bean counter is saying. Take it away. Get it out of their hands. We can take that money. That's our money. I'm sure somebody's like, did you know that we're giving away X many millions of dollars to people who don't even know they have this money and are still going to buy this stuff anyway? Have you ever said like, oh, I have the $3 in the gold points. Now I'm going to treat myself to this. No, it's just always like, oh, there it is. Yes, I will use that.
Whenever they have it, it's like whenever I buy a game, it's like, do you want to use this? I always say yes.
Sure, maybe
but I'm not keeping track of it.
No, it's like, but now I've saved up enough.
I do think they have something else, not like in terms of gold points, but they just might be revamping the whole thing is getting like a whole revamp.
Okay.
For Switch 2. And
but I don't know. You know, usually when they do something like this, they have a very long, it'll end March 24th, 2026.
2026,
They have such a long lead up, where this is like very sudden.
I don't know. I mean, it is a little strange, I guess, that it is quite sudden.
Yeah.
I just get the sense that they like want to clean the house before the new thing comes.
Sure.
It's like anything that's sort of this like thing of the past or thing that we want to get rid of, now's the time to cut it. What else you want to cut off? You know? It's like they really want to kind of trim the branches.
I've seen a lot of people saying like, oh, well, clearly there will be a next version of this. I don't
think there's going to be a next version of this.
Of some reward system.
I don't think there's going to be
Well, what are you talking about then is the next whatever?
I think they're just going to
What are you talking about?
They're probably going to do away with this altogether, but the Switch
That's not what you were saying.
The Switch 2 eShop will just be different and revamped.
This is the Switch 1 eShop.
Yes, exactly. So they want to get rid of it.
So you think there will be no rewards system at all?
I don't think so.
Okay, that's a little bit different than what you were saying. Because again, I've seen a lot of people saying like, oh, well, there will be a new version of this with the Switch 2.
No.
I want to put out the option that there may be absolutely nothing.
I think there's going to be no version
And this just goes away. And again, they're like, why are we giving people free stuff? Make them pay.
Yes. I think they're revamping it in that way is
Yeah.
what I meant. It's like they know that they can like trim away all the stuff
Right.
that is no longer serving them, and they're going to start fresh with Switch 2 with a brand new thing.
Sure.
The brand new thing likely won't include a reward program, but it might have some other little things that
Even if that's the case, I do still think the timing of this is strange, of it happening before we know all about the Switch 2 stuff. But
I don't know. I feel like the timing is not that strange because April 2nd is going to come very soon, and they want people
why not just bury that in the Q&A? It's in all the stuff that's happening April 2nd. By the way, we're phasing out gold Nintendo points, and nobody would care. Versus this was a whole day of like, oh my god. This was a whole day. This was nothing. This was the story for a day.
It's true.
Versus like, we're absolutely burying this.
Yeah, that's true.
And deal with it because look
Maybe
at all
they
this
didn't
cool
think
stuff.
people would care that much. Maybe they thought it was like a nothing.
Maybe the bean counter was like, make them feel some pain. Put this out when we have no other news. Hurt them bad.
No.
Those bean counters are out to get you.
The bean counter.
The bean counter is going to get you. All right, this next couple stories, they're a bit complex.
They're very complex.
And I don't know if there's any like clear answers to these, but let's try and make sense of these.
Dive into it.
So the first thing is what's been happening with Marvel Rivals, where they've been laying off parts of their team.
Yeah.
And that's caused some consternation because obviously this game has been a huge hit.
Right.
And, people are just saying like, gosh, there's no part of game development that is safe to have a job in. Like you could be part of the biggest team and the biggest game out there and have a bona fide hit
and still
get fired. But there maybe is more to this. So it was this is a game that's the development's led in China. In China. But there were parts of the team that were based in other places, and I guess there was a team in Seattle that was helping with things. And one of the guys who got laid off is this game director. And I think that's what threw people off. Like, oh my gosh, you're the game director. I don't think we necessarily understand the full scope of the development operations.
Yeah.
Because I don't think the true game director is this guy. Like, he may have had a very
he might have directed one part of that game.
Right, and they've come out and said, NetEase, who's kind of, this is the company that's making the game, they said that the core team is based in Guangzhou, China. And they're fully committed to, making the game. So I don't think that these were inessential people. But as far as like the core team making Marvel Rivals, like that sounds a little bit separate from these people that got these unfortunate layoffs. But then our good friend Stephen Totilo was doing the reporting and found some interesting information about how NetEase might actually be looking to like divest a lot of its international portfolio. And basically, any studios that it has that are not based in China, that are working on specifically very expensive games, it might just be looking to get out of that.
Yeah.
It looks like there was a lot of kind of chatter around DICE, which happened a few weeks ago of, they're realizing that these games that they are footing the bill for are very expensive, very risky.
Yeah.
And they just kind of want to like cut the fat and maybe get out on some of these while they can.
Get out while ahead, I guess.
Yeah, which is, and they have some big stuff. Like I think Quantic Dream people have pointed out the new studio from Nagoshi who created Yakuza, like his game is potentially, there's like a lot of stuff that they have under their portfolio that could potentially be getting cut here. So this could potentially be part of that bigger strategy of like, let's refocus what we're doing in China with Chinese teams because we can manage that versus like, it's just harder for us to have, the full scope of control of these things that are happening around the world.
Right.
That maybe is the connection here.
Maybe that's the business strategy moving forward.
Right. But again, I think like to the first thing that happened with these people being laid off of the Marvel Rivals team, like it sounds like this just has a very large and complex development plan. And I'm not sure who necessarily has the complete understanding of like, how did these people fit into that? I mean, obviously it's bad news. Obviously it's not good news for the industry. But I don't know. There may be more to this than we understand.
That was my feeling. My takeaway from this entire cycle around this is that, you know, it doesn't seem as clear cut as some of the other layoffs we were seeing. You know, earlier this year, last year, this definitely seemed like there was more to the overall business strategy of NetEase that we don't understand. That's what's kind of driving a lot of these decisions, and they're definitely unfortunate decisions. You know, layoffs and closures and the shrinking of the industry is never good. But I do think that a lot of these bigger, you know, you think a Sony is doing the exact same thing when they look at how expensive development is for certain titles and how risky. I mean, again, Concord as the example.
And there may be just an assumption like, oh, well, these issues, this is a domestic issue of like a Western issue. This is not happening in China, but clearly it is. Clearly it is a point of concern in China as well.
It's a concern everywhere.
Right.
Because I think games are just getting more and more expensive and longer to make, and it's becoming more and more risky because now you have invested not only time and money into something that could potentially fail.
Right.
And I think that a lot of companies are seeing the writing on the wall for that and sort of are pulling back a lot on these projects. And it is very sad to see, but I can see that fear has permeated, you know, pretty much like all game development.
Yeah. This next one is even more bizarre.
Okay, here we go.
So this is about the new video game focused AI tool that Xbox was showing off in some very just strange videos that they released last week. So they have this new AI tool that's called Muse, which they say can generate a game environment based on visuals or players' controller actions. And it's basically, I think the idea is like it is creating a game on the fly.
Like as you're playing it,
based on a couple prompts that you might give it, and kind of as you are playing it, it is building a game that is tailored to your experience. And they shared that it had been gathering information from a game called Bleeding Edge that Ninja Theory was involved in. I guess Ninja Theory is kind of one of the core studios that's involved which is making this, which is something that I'm not sure people had completely understood. You know, now these days you opt into a lot of like data sharing of like, oh, my gameplay is helping to train this AI. That's like a whole new angle to this that I'm not sure everybody. I certainly hadn't been considering.
Someone has checked the box and didn't know.
Well, who's reading nobody is reading the the EULA to all this stuff. You're signing a lot of stuff away.
Signing away a lot of stuff that you don't know about for sure. Yeah.
So they showed a demo of this where it was again it looked like there were a couple prompts and it was kind of building the game on the fly. It ran at 10 frames per second and at 300 by 180 resolution.
Good.
But they were saying, you know, this is early and this is, you know, something that they're going to continue to work on and can keep building upon. And Phil Spencer was out there as part of this. And he was talking about it. I'll read his quote. You could imagine a world where from gameplay data and video that a model could learn old games and really make them portable to any platform where these models could run. We've talked about game preservation as an activity for us. And these models and their ability to learn completely how a game plays without the necessity of the original engine running on the original hardware opens up a ton of opportunity. So his angle on this is a little bit different.
Yeah.
Which is, we're not necessarily going to use this to make a new game, but we have this game preservation goal, and maybe the AI could help make the work of having these old games run on whatever platform.
Make that easier.
Somehow. Again, who knows how?
10 frames
somehow
per second,
Palpatine returned. Somehow we got this Xbox One game running on a modern whatever.
Yeah.
I don't completely understand
This feels like a PR stretch.
the
to me.
functionality of that. And then he also went and said, we've empowered creative leaders here at Xbox to decide on their use of generative AI. There isn't going to be a single solution for every game or project, and the approach will be based on the creative vision and goals of each team. Oh, that was not from Phil Spencer. That was from somebody else who I think is leading part of this initiative.
Yeah.
So, very strange thing for them to put out. This is very half-baked. What do you think is happening here?
Well, you know that this AI conversation, especially around these parts, this conversation around generative AI is just growing bigger and bigger and bigger. And there's so much negative connotation around AI, especially in the world of gaming. I feel like every single time you hear any company, any studio, like using AI in any way, like I feel like people have a very bad reaction to it. I kind of wonder if this is one of those things where bigger Microsoft business initiatives is bleeding over into the gaming space.
I think
that's what's
it's
happening.
It's 100% where, Satya Nadella or whatever power may be at Microsoft brought in all the, heads of all the businesses and said, AI is our corporate priority for this year or for this whatever. You all report back to me in a month about how you're integrating this into what you're doing, and you can't say I'm not doing it.
Yeah,
you have to do it.
I really do think that's the reason why.
So I don't think Phil Spencer is like, oh, I love AI, I want to use AI. I think he has a mandate from his bosses, like I have to find a way to do this.
Yeah,
and I think he's savvy. He knows like. People really don't want
this.
An AI-made game. He's probably like, oh, this example you're showing. First of all, this looks terrible.
Like garbage.
This looks like junk, and it's running at
10 frames
per second, and it probably plays terribly too. He's like, game preservation, yeah. Like,
people love that. You can't argue with that.
It's the back end. Like nobody will ever see it. People probably won't even know. Like it's grunt work. That's the solution. So I really feel for him because I feel like he's in a corner here.
He's in a corner too.
Where he's really at odds with the leadership of Microsoft, who like these people. Like, sometimes they'll talk about games in some earnings call. They don't have a clue.
They don't have a clue.
They don't care. They don't have a clue.
And you know what? Unfortunately,
which is concerning.
Too, it's a very small part of their business.
Right.
It's like not an essential part of their business.
No,
so
it's not.
Why would they care, right?
And I'm sure they see it as like, oh, this is some R&D that we're doing. Like there will be some learning from gaming, and it's a cool,
some data collection kind of thing.
It's a glamour thing for us to have. Help connect with the kids,
brand
the
thing.
youth. Yeah.
But the thing is that like every single company on this planet, whether you like it or not, that is their business mandate. Like every company, and especially around these parts, we're like inundated with this all the time, which is really annoying. It's like. Everybody is like, how do we? AI is the thing. AI is the thing now. And AI is the future. How do we integrate this into our stuff? How do we shoehorn it into all of our stuff?
Both of us, when we drive home, like on the freeway, like it's billboard after billboard.
The most annoying billboards you've ever seen.
Awful billboards.
Yes.
About some nonsense AI tool, and it's like first of all, I don't understand what this is for. I don't understand who the audience for this billboard is. This makes no sense. This is gibberish.
Yep.
Why is this here? But it is every single one.
Yeah, that's why.
Is one of these.
I mean, it's just this is like streaming. Like this is a race to the bottom, guys. No one's making money off of this. No one wants it.
Well, Microsoft is a big leader in AI, so I think they want whatever
they want it to work.
Whatever that means. Like they're like, oh, the investors like this, so let's keep pushing this.
They have like an ulterior motive.
I mean, it was 10 years ago it was the cloud. Years before that it was something else.
Yeah.
Like there's always some shiny object.
Although I do think this is a little different. This one feels even more annoying than the cloud. Like it just feels like it's inescapable in the way that people try to shoehorn this into stuff.
Yeah, I mean, because there's no real
need for it,
tangible benefit to it.
No,
at all.
You're not solving a problem.
No, it's like
you're creating a problem.
Well, you can have a human make a good game, or you could have this AI make a garbage game that runs at 10 frames per second and is about this big in my thing. Awesome, I'd love to do that.
It's like Doug Bowser's Twitch tweet. That's what this AI can do. Tweet a tiny image of a Switch.
Run Doug Bowser's Twitter. Great. There's a solution.
That's actually a problem that you do need to solve.
So again, I was just so puzzled at this because it's like what is the news here? Like, what is actually happening versus these hypotheticals? And this is clearly just some like, hey, investors, look at this, we're doing something.
Exactly.
Like, oh, AI in games, yes, here's my money, yes.
Perfect.
I love that.
Yeah.
I don't understand this either, but it looks awesome.
Yeah, great. We're integrating it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Good.
Poor Phil
Check.
Spencer.
Check the box, you know.
More Pokemon memories.
Yay!
Derek Alexander says, my first exposure to Pokemon was when I was at a friend's house as a kid and he showed me a Charmander TCG card. I thought it looked kind of cool, but didn't learn more about Pokemon until he got a Game Boy and showed me. Shortly after, my parents got me my first Atomic Purple Game Boy Color with Pokemon Yellow, and the rest is history. I've played every main series entry and will be a Pokemon fan until the day I die. Or until Game Freak starts putting out games so bad that I can't stand to play them, which, to be honest, we are pretty close to anyways.
That's like me. I'm like you, Derek.
What do you mean?
That's how I feel.
You don't play these games. You didn't play Scarlet and Violet.
Well, because it was so bad that I could not even play it.
I think Derek's got a couple legs up on you.
I think I'm Derek.
Alex L. says, I remember watching and rewatching Sneak Peek at Pokemon, the VHS tape that Nintendo Power sent out. I was eagerly reading their coverage before Red, Blue, and the anime released in the US, and I remember taking the details of Pokemon species they mentioned and putting them in a spreadsheet.
Wow.
That is dedication.
Alex.
When the games did come out, we wound up with a group that played together on my elementary school bus. One of our trades glitched out and left both players with the same Pokemon.
Oh my gosh.
Which led us to discover how to clone them intentionally.
Oh.
Another classmate had somehow acquired a Mew, probably from somebody using a Game Genie, so we provided our know-how and everyone got one.
You should have sold that Mew.
That's amazing.
Make a bus time business.
That's,
$10.
Sell the spreadsheet.
$10 for the Mew. For each Mew,
Okay.
$10. You buy me a milk at lunch.
Led us to discover how to clone. What?
It's amazing.
Wow.
So awesome.
Oh, man. Can't
So
patch that.
awesome.
All right. On to our questions from our community, which always come from our Patreon subscribers. Check us out at patreon.com/Kit and Krysta. Let's start with the Keggers. Will Nintendo throw a party or celebration after the launch of Switch 2? They don't seem to be the type that would, but I wonder if they do anything to recognize all the hard work that goes into a console launch, or is it more of a back to work we go kind of mindset?
Did we get a party for Switch 1?
You were not there, so you don't know. You were still on the road, I think.
Oh, I wasn't
So
there.
I can confirm there was a party for the Switch 1 launch.
Good thing the lead for the Switch 1 launch was not there. Awesome.
It was very muted.
Dude, was there a cake?
It was just in the middle of the day. Somebody did make a cake that looked like a Switch.
That's cute.
There was some sort of like office photo. Everybody, oh, we did it. We launched the Switch. Come in for this photo that was
office
on,
photo.
Insight, the little intranet thing.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't there.
Which, I mean, this sounds like nothing, but as far as Nintendo and these things go, like that, this was like,
It's like a big deal.
This was like a big
That's why I asked you if there was cake. Usually
There
if
was
this
a
is
cake.
Cake is important.
If there's some sort of special food item, it's like, you
did it.
This is a big deal.
A big deal.
Big deal.
Yeah.
So I think they'll do something like that. Of like,
Probably have a cake.
Yeah, you could just spare, 20 minutes to eat a piece of cake and then hurry back to the
I
meeting.
like it when we have cake. That's nice.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, when it's like a non-birthday cake,
Yes.
that's like a special thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, not like anything crazy like
No, get the day off or
I'm gonna throw you like a real party, with like at like a cool venue or something. Like nothing like that. Like everyone go to a barcade and hang.
No way.
Yeah, no way.
Furlio asks, what is the origin of Nintendo's company motto of surprising and delighting fans? Was this idea established before or during your tenure at the company? And how has this influenced or changed Nintendo's approach to customer engagement over the years?
Well, this is an Iwata-ism.
Yes, it is.
Mr. Iwata came up with the both the phrase and explained to us,
Yes.
His philosophy behind the phrase of surprising and delighting fans, and that definitely became like the number one thing that the company would go to in terms of like checking if something feels like a thing Nintendo would do is like, does this surprise and delight our fans? Does it bring smiles to the faces of the people?
Yeah.
Like that was something that he really instilled on everybody, and it's stuck to this day.
Stuck around, and again, like this element of surprise is so important.
Yeah.
Where we would sometimes hear like we're making this trade-off. We're sacrificing something to preserve
the element
of surprise.
Yeah.
So, which is why, we make such a big deal when things leak or things don't go according to plan, because, they really are banking a lot on that being a big surprise moment for the fans. There's another phrase in Japanese that I think is called dokuso, something along that lines. It means to create something unique, and that's kind of more for the product-oriented people, where it's like, don't just make iteration 10 of the thing you've made before, like make something that is something people haven't experienced, something people may not know that they want yet.
Yeah.
It is your job to be the embodiment of this concept of dokuso.
Yeah, I remember that as well. I do feel like, Nintendo knows that oftentimes on the very, typical types of things that video game companies talk about to impress players, power, graphics, even expensive AAA titles, big name celebrities, on sort of that playing field, they know that they will lose if they try to play that same game. So the way to sort of combat that is through this surprise and delight kind of mindset and business philosophy. And that's why, when we were talking so much about, we have a whole video about how mad is Nintendo with all of these leaks right ahead of the Switch 2 reveal, and how every single leak was pretty much like a checklist of it being correct, and you've lost the element of surprise. That was a big deal for them, and definitely something that really was a huge disappointment that they weren't able to actually do this with the Switch 2 reveal. So.
Right. Next is Pumpkin Pie. Hi, Kit and Krysta. As a Canadian, I wanted to ask about Nintendo of Canada. I know it's organized as a division of NOA, and of course the hardware and software release decisions are primarily controlled by NOA for both countries, and Nintendo of Canada controls some of the marketing and localization in Canadian French, pricing decisions in respect to the exchange rate against the US dollar for Canada. But I'm wondering to the extent of that, as well as what amount of control that NOA has over that type of stuff for Canada. Did you work with Nintendo of Canada on anything, and is there anything more specific about Nintendo of Canada that you guys know? Thank you.
Yeah, we worked pretty closely with Nintendo of Canada, actually.
Known as NOCL.
NOCL, yep. It's quite a small team.
So they're in Vancouver.
Vancouver.
They had a very small office in Toronto that they actually were closing around the time that they were closing our office as well. But that was really small.
That was pretty
tiny.
Like
10
people.
10 or less people, yeah.
Yeah. But the Vancouver office is still around.
Yes. Did you ever go to that office? I never did.
Yes, I did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Once, I remember, one time.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's true. They were sort of not given a lot of independence. They were, because their marketing was so close to NOA's. They oftentimes was just kind of repurposed stuff that we were doing. But they did some of their own stuff as well. They definitely had their own media outlets. They had their own marketing events that they were doing. They definitely, sales, obviously you talked about sales around pricing and things like that. That was all done up in that office. But yeah, I do feel like a lot of times we made fun of them. NOCL, they're not that important. Just whatever, just do it this way, do it our way, and then
you'll see they do have some of their own social media channels, and sometimes you'll see them do the exact same tweet as NOA, but a day later, because it's when you give it to NOCL after you're done, all right, here's what we're running this week. So they'll be like, oh yes, we'll do that too.
Right.
But a day later.
Yeah.
And we did sometimes have some disagreements. I remember they wanted to open kind of their own, I think it was an Instagram account that we were going back and forth on. We're we want to line up a lot of these Canadian celebrities and reach the Canadian fans. Mm-hmm. And our argument was let's just put the Canadian celebrities on the Nintendo America account.
It's just a fan for everybody.
But it's
these are well-known celebrities.
It's not so culturally distinct that it's the Canadian fan is turning up its nose at I'm not going to follow Nintendo America. I need Nintendo of Canada. Maybe I'm completely misreading, the
Canadian
perception.
The Canadian population is going to come after you now.
But it's like, do we really need to like splinter this audience this way? Because it's like, I'm sure there's plenty of people in America who know this Canadian influencer and want to see this stuff. Like, let's just put it all in the same place. And
a lot of people, it's global appeal.
Right.
For
and I think,
either or.
And again, I think this was, they had kind of a more extreme version of what we did, where it's like, oh, we want to do things, we want to do the job to the best of our abilities, and somebody was telling them, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
I think so.
So it's a tough job because you just don't have a lot of autonomy. It was also this being the head of Nintendo of Canada was often
Punishment.
Approving, we talked about like the proving of somebody to get a promotion. Like sometimes somebody would be shipped up to Canada, like, oh, they're going to run Canada for 2 years.
Yeah.
And this is going to be a big boost in their
But
career.
it was also like a punishment. It was like sending somebody to Siberia for 2
depending
years.
on the person.
Depending on a lot of people got punished by being sent up there.
There was one person who went there, I think, as part of like actual career growth of like, oh, you have a lot of, and they're at NOA now.
Yes.
And moving up the ranks. But yeah, there were some times where it was like,
I think it was more so punishment than career
we need to do
growth.
something with you, and we need you out of our hair. So you're going to Canada.
You're going to Canada. You're being shipped off to Canada
so
where you can't do anything.
Interesting how that worked. Yes.
That's what they used to do, though. They did.
Wendell Shoemaker's next. Do you remember what the internal thoughts around Kid Icarus Uprising was? Specifically around the controls and needing to bundle the 3DS stand with the game to prevent people's hands from hurting. I never had a big issue with the controls, and it's one of my favorite games, but I'm curious what Nintendo thought of it.
Well,
I remember in one of our meetings with the Treehouse, whoever it was, they very just plainly said, oh, and the game will be shipping with a stand. And I was like, oh, and then they just continued on with their presentation. I was like, excuse me. Can we go back to that? Because that sounds like a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
If we are shipping a stand in the game in this giant package so people can play it without getting carpal tunnel?
Yeah.
What the heck?
I do remember it was very it was almost like, we're going to tell you that this is happening, but you're not to ask any follow-up questions.
Yes.
And the reason being is because Sakurai wants to do this. Whatever he wants to do, he gets to do. No questions asked at Nintendo. Seriously. No one will ask him ever anything.
But I mean, it was very telling that you need this to properly play that. Most people, at least, need this to not experience.
But also, it was
some degree of discomfort.
But it's also like we kind of don't care because that's what he wants to do, so he gets to do what he wants to do.
But still, like, it's very counter to the idea of a handheld game. Or it's like, what am I on the bus, like setting up the stand in the
that stand was
crook of my lap, and
that stand was really handy for Art Academy. Like 2 months later.
Yeah, it was good for some other things too. But, yeah, I mean, it's always just kind of one of the main conversation points around that game. It's an incredible game.
And the embargoes.
But the controls are a hindrance for some people, and for good reason, which is why I think so many of us would love it to be on a modern system with some sort of revamped controls. It's tricky because just the tactileness of it is very
so
focused on touch.
Yeah,
it is great when you get it to work, but I think a lot of people will always have some mixed feelings about this game because of this.
Yeah, that's so true. It was very inaccessible to a lot of people because of this. It's a great game. I would love for them to remake it with modern controls. But yeah, I remember we all just suffered through it. We all just use the stand. Our hands hurt, but not much to do about it. No room for discussion was the vibe around that game and launch. And it was very much like, Sakurai wants to do this. We have to do everything we can in our power to make this a thing and enable him to do this.
Yeah. Last question from Silver6477. Hey, Kit and Krysta, I saw this on Facebook and thought you would be great for this. We have this infographic here of Nintendo 64 games. Pick 3 games from this collection. The rest disappear forever.
Oh, no.
My picks are, and this is Silver6477's picks, Super Mario 64, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, and GoldenEye.
Okay.
I think the majority of AAA games enjoyed and sold today would not exist were it not for these games and their innovations. So let's quickly rattle off all these games in case people can't see or are on audio. Mario 64, Mario Kart 64, GoldenEye, Ocarina of Time, Super Smash Bros., Diddy Kong Racing, Pokemon Stadium, Donkey Kong 64, Majora's Mask, Star Fox 64, Perfect Dark, Banjo-Tooie, Pokemon Snap, Mario Party 2, Banjo-Kazooie, Pokemon Stadium 2, Wave Race 64, Star Wars Shadows of the Empire, Yoshi's Story, and Mario Party 3. Okay,
Whoa.
so we need to get this down to 3. Well, let's start by dumping the Mario Party. That's a quick
That's a quick
just
one.
Quick cut.
Star Wars, dump that.
I actually think nothing on this bottom rung.
Yeah.
Let's start on the bottom rung and work up. No.
No.
Next rung. No.
Pokemon Snap, Mario Party 2, Banjo.
I think that's a big fat
yeah, no.
Next rung. Okay, you could start to get some arguments here.
Maybe
Banjo-Tooie.
No.
Perfect Dark, Star Fox. Yeah,
Maybe.
I'm fine cutting all of these.
Okay, no.
Next row.
We gotta keep Smash.
I'm cutting Pokemon Stadium. I'm cutting Diddy Kong Racing. I've actually never played Diddy Kong Racing. Can you believe that?
I don't think
So
I
I've been
played
on this.
Diddy Kong
I've been on
Racing.
this Nintendo 64 kick.
Are you buy Diddy Kong
and-
Racing?
Well, I've thought
you
about
play
it,
here?
but I found this channel, this YouTube channel of this guy who does standalone videos on every Nintendo 64. He
my
does
gosh.
nothing but Nintendo 64. And I watched his video on Diddy Kong Racing, and he was just like, I love this game. This game's incredible. This game was like so formative at the
It
time.
looks pretty fun.
And then I watched it, I'm like, I don't know.
Maybe it plays different than it...
Maybe you had to be there.
Okay.
Maybe you had to be there.
All right.
I'm for now cutting Diddy Kong Racing, Pokemon Stadium, and Donkey Kong. We're keeping Smash for
We
now.
have to keep Smash. Yeah.
Super Mario 64, that's in, guaranteed.
We have to keep that.
Stamped, golden.
And then everything else can go except for Ocarina
Mario
of Time.
64, GoldenEye, Ocarina of Time.
Ocarina of Time.
So our top 5
Our top five is-
are Mario 64, Mario Kart 64, GoldenEye, Ocarina of Time, and Smash.
Yeah.
Those are our top 5.
I think so, yeah.
Well, you can have a different version of this list than I do. So what is your 3?
My 3 is probably Mario 64, Smash, and Ocarina of Time.
Mario 64, Smash, and Ocarina of Time. Should say you never owned a Nintendo 64,
I
so
did
your
not.
so your list is invalid.
Oh.
I'm sorry to tell you that.
Is it because I took Baldur's Gate off that one
When was the
list?
first time you played Ocarina of Time?
GameCube.
Oh, on that funny little
That
disc?
disc thing.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating.
I got the funny disc from a friend that already played it and won the funny disc.
And that was your first time.
That was the first time.
Did you play Majora's Mask? That was on that disc, I think.
I think that was my first time playing Majora's Mask as well, and I didn't get through it because I didn't like it.
Huh. Learn something new every day.
There you go.
All right. Well, again, since I've been playing Nintendo 64
Okay.
games, I've actually played a number of these games recently to check in.
Okay, and?
I'm sticking. Ooh, this is tricky. So Mario 64 is definitely in.
That's like your favorite game of all time.
I think
That's-
GoldenEye has to be in. I went back to that, and again, playing it on the. You have to play these games on the controller.
I know.
With the Nintendo 64
You need that
controller, it still
controller.
is really good.
Yeah, you do. That game was great.
I
I did play that game a lot in college,
Yeah.
even though I didn't own a Nintendo 64. That was one of the few games I played in the moment.
It hurts me to cut Mario Kart 64, but I'm going to do it.
You have to.
There's been some slander in our Discord recently about this, and as somebody who has been playing this game as recently
Still
as
good,
this
right?
weekend, I think it still holds up. I will not accept this slander. People saying that Mario Kart 64 is worse than Mario's Super Circuit. You are out of your mind. Mario Super Circuit is the worst Mario Kart game ever made by
That game is
by
terrible.
a huge margin. Do not talk badly
No, I think
about Mario
64 is
Kart
definitely
64,
better than
but
Super.
I'm sorry I have to cut it for Smash Brothers. So my top
Yeah,
3 is Mario
Smash
64, Smash,
and
and
GoldenEye.
GoldenEye.
No Ocarina of Time, the most formative Zelda game of all time. Wow.
We've moved on.
Wow.
Okay, we have one more Pokemon memory to bring us home and wrap up the
Bring
episode
it home.
from Samus250. This story goes places, so get ready.
Oh.
This story's crazy.
I'm so excited.
My sister got a light blue Game Boy Color and Pokemon Yellow for her birthday, November 1999. It was hers, but she was asked to share with all of us so we would play all the same Game Boy and the same games.
How is that possible?
On a night in the spring of 2000, the whole family was going out to a restaurant for dinner and we were prohibited from taking the Game Boy Color. I snuck it out of the house anyway and got into trouble when my parents found out. When we came back, it turns out that our house had been broken into. The thieves stole tons of stuff, including our SNES games. Side note, we had no N64 until late 2000,
my
and the
goodness.
thieves disconnected the SNES but ended up ditching it, so we still own it. My siblings were super happy that I snuck out the Game Boy and Pokemon Yellow that night. I have few memories of those times, and most of them are vague and blurry, but that one feels like it happened yesterday. I know this memory doesn't have much to do with Pokemon per se, but I think it's the earliest concrete one I have. My parents gifted me a Game Boy with blue version later that year, and Pokemon Gold in 2001. I have stronger memories of those games, but the yellow holds a place in my heart. We still have it stored with a small collection of games at my parents' house. I'm so glad it was not stolen.
This is an
Isn't that incredible?
incredible story.
That's amazing.
And whoever were the thieves that robbed you guys, that's dirty.
Scum.
That's dirty. I can't believe they would steal your SNES games, but incredible stuff. Wow.
You can't make this up.
You can't make this
You cannot make this up.
Pokemon has touched
Wow.
our lives in such different and memorable ways.
This was a very fun thing to check in with these stories
That was
throughout the
fun.
episodes.
We got so many
it was
responses.
very hard to pick the ones that we
We
included
should
here. So
include
thank you to
them somewhere
everybody
else. Yeah.
who did that.
You guys are
You could be
awesome.
a part of the fun by joining us at patreon.com. I almost said Pokemon.
I know. I was like, we're not there.
Patreon.com/Kit and Krysta. For just a few dollars a month, you can become this incredible community, get all
Yeah.
sorts of exclusive content, early access to this podcast, and so much more.
So much more. We're also on the socials. We're on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, Blue Sky, and Threads.
Yes, and if you're watching this on video, you can subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and leave us a comment. And if you're listening on audio, you can also subscribe, give the podcast a 5-star rating, and leave a written review if you please. I see you keep looking at your watch. Do you have somewhere to be?
No, something.
Are you-
Somebody's sending me some crazy text
Are
messages.
you trying to catch a bus or something? Like
No,
what's
just
going on
making
here?
sure.
Sorry, this podcast went too long for you.
No, my goodness, not at
Gotta
all.
get called out.
Anyways,
You got better things to do?
wrap it up.
This is my life.
I
This
got
podcast.
These people are messaging me.
Oh my gosh.
We got to shout out some amazing Patreon
Yes.
community members, starting with our final boss, Aaron Hash,
There he is.
right there.
We learned the origin story of the Cyber Fox artwork recently, and it
Yeah.
was a fascinating story.
I liked it a lot, and I think that Cyber Fox looks kind of like a Pokemon character, honestly.
Oh.
And like I'm looking at it next to all of our other Pokemon
Fits right in.
characters. It fits right in.
Yes.
I love it. I love it. All right, superstars. Here we go. Ben Eichhorn,
Maru Mayhem,
Eigenverse,
Kiss My Flapjack,
Mike Chin,
Roy Eschke,
Switching It Up _
VGM Life,
Link, the hero of Winds,
Angela Bycroft,
Thomas O'Rourke,
Kala Buff,
Roberto Nieves,
Frederick Ulf Conradson,
Andrew Uhas,
Chili,
Simon,
Crashuri,
Master Discord,
Ash,
Ajay Kunlas,
40 Gig,
Travis Torline,
Echo Ledare.
and That's So Linnell.
Yeah.
That's So Linnell sent you a beautiful box.
We
of
just got
N64
it,
games.
but you gave me a hint of what is inside.
Yes.
And I have to say, thank you, Linnell.
Thank you.
That is
it's
incredibly
so
generous.
and sweet of you. We're gonna unbox it
We're
during our
going to
behind
crack.
the scenes video.
Yes, we're going to crack into that after this.
Yes. All right, One Up Club. Here we go. Aaron Burgundy,
Ale Alejandro.
Andy Peachy,
Aristu.
Astrodev,
Awesome 46.
Axel,
Bates.
Benji B,
Big N Gamer with a Y.
Brandon Cavapil,
Brett Dennison.
Brovak Novak,
Bruce Stash.
Lucky Flores,
Cameron.
Shadir,
Chelly Squirrel.
Crispy Saurus,
Chris Galvin.
Christopher Lay,
Cosmic Titan 718.
Captain Alex,
C Roper 17.
Dag Leo,
Dallas E.
Daniel Phillips,
Dachshund.
Debbie P,
Doinko.
Dre,
Do Dad Live Trilec.
Centric Tony,
Elite Peach.
S Parts 50,
Fairbound.
Fernie and Jess Forever,
Fox Deploy.
Funky Hand,
Garth the Wolf.
Guardtooth,
Gin Wolf.
Guilty Phoenix 42,
Handheld Gamer.
Happy Sloth,
I may have made a mistake.
Iris Marin,
Jay Rando.
Jack Hoving,
Jameson Eisenberg.
Joe Encarnacion,
Jonathan Rowe.
Jordan Hemmerly,
Joshua Clements.
Juju Fruit,
Justin Lemminger.
Jay Wolf,
Callan CPU 57.
Kala 2796,
Keith Kwan.
Kevin Delane,
Kilo Kibo.
Christopia Party With Me,
Kyle Gamerberry Rookie.
Kyle 325,
Kyle Kretzer.
Kyle R. Smith,
Lazy Cat for Coffee.
Levi Yahoo,
Lex.
Lightwood,
Link 9898.
Low Mikey,
Linko.
Light Latte,
Lit.
Lucas Pico,
Luigi 53.
Luna B,
Lynn.
Macho Potato,
Mad Dog 5981.
Magnificent Easy G plus Callie Marie,
Mario Man 392.
Mark S,
Marky Man 64.
Maverick Nate,
Mecha Dragon 101.
Megan,
May plus Leon.
Michael Mazer,
Michael Wong.
Mikey,
Mr. Ryan 07.
Motomania,
Mr. Andy Pong.
Mr. Beans and Dip,
MSM Poke Gamer.
My Tran,
Nami.
Nasir,
Niaf E.
Ninja 11,
Noah San.
Pangy,
Patrice Millette.
Paul,
Paul Gale Network.
Prime Factor,
Prince Charmless.
Punky,
Rain Tech.
Rayburns,
Record Rumble.
Ryuji Utsuho Oku.
Rob M.
Rob O.
Romsky 113.
Rocks.
Ryan Hayes 521.
Ryan Haas.
Ryanetta.
Sebastiano Garossi.
Sharif Jackson.
Shinryu.
Schmiggles.
Slowbro. Stacy Poo.
Spicy Munchkin.
Starman DX.
Steel Citron.
Pseudo Priest.
Tales of Link.
Tandem.
Tay 120N64.
Tealfox 64.
The Keggers.
The Quiet One.
The Shark Among Men.
Thomas Alvarez.
Three Rivers.
Torcheeks.
Totally Joed.
Totomaru.
Trajowie.
Trev Tendo 88.
Tugs Puppy Bear.
Tusku.
Tyler Geist.
Uncle Jungle.
Victor MK.
Video Game Stupid.
Vidgmictor.
Viridian.
Virtual Bot.
WG Grizzy.
Wayu.
Wicked Davy.
Zelgarov.
Zapatty.
Zero Link.
Ezride.
Every time we get to Gin Wolf, I think that's like a name that you would give yourself on one of your lost nights at the bars. You're like swirling the drain.
Me?
Yeah.
Why me?
I'm the Gin Wolf.
What?
Might be time to call it a night. Flick the lights on Krysta here.
Oh no. I don't think I would say that about myself. Maybe I'm the puppy bear, but
I see.
okay. Anyways.
Enjoy Pokemon Week, everybody.
Yes. Hope you're having a great Pokemon week, and we'll see you guys later.
Bye-bye.